Ethan Cole wakes up in a luxurious hotel room with no memory of the night before. Sitting opposite him is Victoria Hale, the cold billionaire CEO with a one-year marriage contract. This impoverished man, recently jobless and on the verge of losing his daughter, now faces an unbelievable offer: become the powerful tycoon's fake husband in exchange for his daughter's future. But behind this cold agreement lies a secret he never expected: a forgotten past and a silent, long-standing love. Follow the story to the end, like and comment with the city you're currently viewing to let me know how far this story has progressed. Ethan Cole woke to the smell of expensive leather and something floral he couldn't name. His head pounded like someone had used it for percussion practice, and his mouth tasted like he'd been chewing on cotton balls soaked in regret. He blinked against the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, trying to piece together where the hell he was. This wasn't his apartment. His apartment had water stains on the ceiling and a radiator that clanked like it was possessed. This place had crown molding, actual crown molding. And was that marble he was seeing in the bathroom doorway? He sat up too fast and immediately regretted it. The room tilted sideways before righting itself. He was still wearing his jeans and t-shirt from yesterday, wrinkled and smelling faintly of the bar where he'd apparently spent his last $20. His jacket was draped over a chair that probably cost more than his monthly rent used to cost, back when he could afford rent. "You're awake." Ethan's head snapped toward the voice, and he immediately wished he hadn't moved that quickly. A woman sat in an armchair by the window, backlit so he couldn't make out her features clearly at first. But as his eyes adjusted, he saw her. She was maybe 30, dressed in a suit that screamed money in a language Ethan didn't speak. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, with her dark hair pulled back in a way that was either effortlessly elegant or took an hour in a professional. Her face was beautiful in that untouchable way: high cheekbones, sharp jawline, lips that looked like they'd forgotten how to smile somewhere around puberty. But it was her eyes that got him. Dark, calculating, and completely devoid of warmth. "Who are you?" Ethan croaked. "Where am I?" "The Celestial Hotel, penthouse suite." She said it like she was reading stock prices. "As for who I am, my name is Victoria Hale." The name meant nothing to him. Should it have? He rubbed his face, trying to clear the fog. "Okay, why am I here?" Victoria crossed one leg over the other, and Ethan noticed her shoes probably cost more than his car, back before it got repossessed. "You don't remember last night?" "Lady, I don't remember the last 3 days clearly." That wasn't entirely true, but the last 48 hours were definitely fuzzy around the edges. He'd been fired 2 days ago. That part he remembered with crystal clarity. Everything after that was a blur of cheap whiskey and cheaper decisions. She reached for something on the table beside her, a folder, expensive looking like everything else in this fever dream. She opened it and slid a document across the coffee table toward him. "We have business to discuss." Ethan didn't move. He was trying to figure out if this was real or if he'd finally snapped. Maybe he was still passed out in that bar. Maybe this was a concussion dream. Business? A proposal, specifically. Victoria's expression didn't change. She could have been discussing the weather for all the emotion she showed. A marriage contract. That woke him up faster than coffee ever could. A what? "You heard me correctly." She gestured to the document. 1 year, legally binding. In exchange for your participation, I'll provide you with financial security, healthcare coverage for you and your daughter, and a substantial payout at the end of the term. Ethan stared at her, then at the document, then back at her. "Is this some kind of joke? Because I've had a really shitty week, and if someone put you up to this—" "Nobody put me up to anything." Victoria's voice was ice. "This is a legitimate business proposition. I need a husband for 1 year. You need money. We can help each other." "You're insane." Ethan stood up, which was a mistake because the room decided to do a lazy spin. He grabbed the back of the couch for support. "I'm leaving." "Your daughter needs surgery." Ethan froze. The room stopped spinning, but now everything felt too sharp, too focused. He turned slowly. "What did you say?" Victoria's expression remained neutral, but there was something in her eyes now. "Emma Cole, age 6, congenital heart defect. The doctors recommended surgery 6 months ago, but you couldn't afford it. You've been working 3 jobs trying to save up, but you're not even halfway there. And now you've lost your primary source of income." The air left Ethan's lungs. How do you know about Emma? I make it my business to know things. Victoria stood, and even in heels, she was almost his height. You have no savings, no prospects. Your landlord is 3 weeks away from evicting you. Your daughter needs medical care you cannot provide. I'm offering you a solution. You're offering me a cage. Ethan's hands were shaking. He shoved them in his pockets. What kind of person are you? A practical one. Victoria moved to stand in front of him, and up close, he could see she wasn't as untouchable as she pretended to be. There were faint circles under her eyes, carefully concealed with makeup. A small scar at her temple, barely visible. I'm not asking you to love me, Mr. Cole. I'm asking you to play a role. Show up to events, look presentable, smile for cameras. In exchange, your daughter gets the best cardiac surgeon in the country, and you get enough money to start over when this is done. Why me? The question came out harder than he meant it to. You're clearly loaded. You could hire any actor in the city to play your fake husband. Why some random guy you found in a bar? Something flickered across Victoria's face. It was gone so fast Ethan almost thought he'd imagined it. You're not random. Then what am I? She turned away, walking back to the window. The morning light caught her profile, and for a second Ethan saw something underneath the Ice Queen routine. Something that looked almost vulnerable. Someone who makes sense. Someone whose background will withstand scrutiny. Someone who has something to lose, which means you won't betray me. You mean someone desperate enough to say yes? Victoria glanced back at him. We're both using each other, Mr. Cole. Let's not pretend otherwise. You need money. I need a husband. It's a fair exchange. Ethan wanted to tell her to go to hell, wanted to walk out of this ridiculous penthouse and this ridiculous conversation and never look back. But Emma's face swam in front of his eyes. Emma, who got winded going upstairs. Emma, who had to sit out of gym class while other kids played. Emma, who asked him last week if she was going to die because she'd overheard him on the phone with the hospital. I need to think about it, he said finally. You have until tomorrow morning. Victoria returned to her chair and picked up a tablet. Just like that, he was dismissed. The contract is on the table. Read it. If you're interested, sign it and leave it with the front desk. If not, walk away. Either way, this conversation never happened. Ethan grabbed the folder and headed for the door. His hand was on the handle when her voice stopped him. Mr. Cole. He looked back. Victoria was watching him with those dark, unreadable eyes. Your daughter deserves a chance. Don't let pride kill her. The words hit like a punch to the gut. Ethan left without responding. 24 hours earlier, Ethan's life had been different. Not good exactly, but at least he'd had a job. He'd been working the lunch shift at Marcello's, a mid-tier Italian restaurant that catered to business crowds and tourists who didn't know any better. The tips were decent, and the manager mostly left him alone as long as he showed up on time and didn't drop plates. It wasn't the career he'd imagined for himself back in college, before Emma came along and his whole life rearranged itself around being a dad, but it paid the bills. Most of them, anyway. He was clearing a table in the back section when he heard the commotion. Loud voices, the kind that made other diners glance up from their pasta. Ethan recognized the tone before he even turned around. He'd heard it before, in every service job he'd ever worked. Entitled, aggressive, used to getting what it wanted. I said, bring me another drink. Are you deaf or just stupid? The voice belonged to a man in an expensive suit, mid-40s, with the kind of tan that came from golf courses and Caribbean vacations. He was leaning back in his chair, smirking at the young waitress standing beside his table. She couldn't have been more than 19, and her face was bright red. Sir, I brought you what you ordered, she said quietly. Her nameplate read, Jessie. You asked for scotch. Neat. That's, don't tell me what I asked for. The man's voice got louder. Other tables were definitely watching now. This is the wrong brand. I specifically said Macallan 18. Are you incapable of following simple instructions? Ethan saw Jessie's hands trembling. I'm sorry, sir. I'll get the manager. I don't want the manager. I want you to stop being incompetent. The man reached out and grabbed her wrist. Maybe if you spent less time playing on your phone and more time paying attention. Ethan was moving before he fully decided to move. He crossed the dining room in 4 strides and put his hand on the man's shoulder. Sir, let her go. The man looked up, annoyed at the interruption. His grip didn't loosen. Who the hell are you? The guy telling you to let her go. Ethan's voice was steady, but his heart was hammering. He needed this job. Emma needed him to have this job. But some things you couldn't walk away from. She's trying to help you. Be decent about it. Decent? The man released Jesse's wrist and stood up. He was shorter than Ethan, but carried himself like someone used to throwing weight around. You want to talk to me about decent? This little bitch. Ethan didn't let him finish. Call her that again, and we're going to have a problem. The restaurant had gone quiet. Even the kitchen noise seemed to have stopped. Ethan was aware of everyone watching, aware that his manager was probably going to fire him for this, aware that he was making a mistake he couldn't afford to make. But Jessie looked like she was about to cry, and this asshole had the same look in his eye that Ethan had seen in too many men who thought money made them bulletproof. The man smiled, but there was nothing friendly in it. Do you know who I am? Don't care. I could buy this place. I could buy you. I could make one phone call and ruin your pathetic little life. Probably, Ethan agreed. But right now, you're going to apologize to her, pay your bill, and leave. Or I'm going to personally escort you out. For a second, Ethan thought the guy might actually swing at him. His face went purple, his fists clenched. But then his companion, another suit, quieter, probably his lawyer, put a hand on his arm and murmured something Ethan couldn't hear. The man jerked away but pulled out his wallet. He threw a handful of bills on the table, way more than the meal cost, and jabbed a finger at Ethan. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Probably not even in my top 10, Ethan said. The man stormed out, his companion trailing behind. The restaurant slowly came back to life, conversations resuming in whispers and glances. Jessie was still standing there, looking stunned. You okay? Ethan asked. She nodded, then shook her head, then started crying. Ethan awkwardly patted her shoulder and flagged down another server to take her to the back. His manager appeared exactly 3 minutes later. My office. Now. Ethan knew how this went. He'd seen it before. The manager didn't care about what happened or why. He cared about angry customers who might leave bad reviews or cause scenes. He cared about lawsuits and corporate complaints and keeping things smooth. The conversation lasted less than 5 minutes. I'm sorry, Ethan. You know I like you, but I can't have my staff confronting customers, no matter what the reason. You're done. And just like that, he was unemployed. Ethan sat on a bench outside Emma's school, the marriage contract folder beside him like a ticking bomb. School let out in 10 minutes, and he needed to figure out what face to put on before his daughter came running out. Emma could read him better than anyone. She'd know something was wrong. Everything was wrong. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his bank account for the dozenth time, as if the numbers might have magically changed. They hadn't. $237. That was all he had left in the world. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Emma's prescription refill was next week. He'd been counting on his paycheck from Marcello's to bridge the gap. His phone buzzed. A text from his landlord. Need to talk about next month. Call me. Ethan deleted it. He'd deal with that later. Or never. He wasn't sure which. The school doors opened and kids started pouring out in a chaos of backpacks and shouting. Ethan spotted Emma immediately. She was always one of the last ones out, taking her time, her small hand clutching the strap of her bag. She waved when she saw him, and his heart did that thing it always did, that squeeze that was equal parts love and terror. She was so small, 6 years old and built like a bird. The doctor said the surgery would help, that she'd get stronger, that she'd be able to run and play like other kids. But the surgery cost money Ethan didn't have, would never have at the rate he was going. Daddy! Emma crashed into him, all elbows and enthusiasm. Guess what? Mrs. Peterson said my drawing was good enough for the art show. She's going to hang it in the hallway. Ethan lifted her up, ignoring the protest from his back. That's amazing, kiddo. Which drawing? The one with the butterflies, remember? I used all the purple. How could I forget? Purple's your signature color. He set her down and grabbed her hand. Come on, let's get ice cream. Emma's eyes went wide. Really? But it's Wednesday. Special occasion. Your art debut requires celebration. They didn't have money for ice cream. They barely had money for groceries. But Ethan couldn't bring himself to care. If he was going to sell himself into a fake marriage to an ice queen billionaire, he could buy his kid a $2 cone first. The ice cream shop was 3 blocks away, and Emma chattered the entire walk. Her teacher said this. Her friend said that. She learned a new word in spelling. Ethan made the appropriate noises, asked the right questions, and tried not to think about the contract in his jacket pocket. 1 year, legally binding. Emma got strawberry with sprinkles. Ethan got nothing and told her he wasn't hungry. They sat on the curb outside the shop, and Emma kicked her feet while she ate, getting pink drips on her school uniform. "Daddy, why were you waiting outside school today? You usually wait in the car." "Car's in the shop," Ethan lied. The car had been repossessed last month. He'd been taking buses and walking, but he didn't tell Emma that. "Thought it'd be nice to walk." Emma considered this while she licked her cone. "Are you sad?" The question caught him off guard. "What? No, why would you think that? You have your sad face on." "I have a sad face?" "Yeah, it's like your regular face, but your eyes are different." Emma demonstrated by making her own face serious and looking down. "Like that." Ethan pulled her close, ice cream and all. "I'm not sad. I'm just thinking." "About what?" "About how I'm failing you. About how your mom would have handled this better. About how I'm going to sign a contract with a woman I don't know because I'm out of options and you need surgery and I'm supposed to protect you, but I can't even keep a job. About how lucky I am to have you," he said instead. Emma wrinkled her nose. "That's mushy, Daddy." "I'm allowed to be mushy. I'm your dad." She finished her ice cream and wiped her hands on her skirt, which was definitely going to stain. "Can we go to the park?" "Not today, sweetie. You've got homework and I need to make some phone calls." "About a job?" Ethan hesitated. "Something like that." They walked home, a studio apartment above a laundromat that smelled like fabric softener and desperation. Emma dumped her backpack on the floor and immediately turned on the tiny television, settling in for her after-school cartoons. Ethan went to the kitchen alcove and pulled out the contract. He'd read it twice already. It was surprisingly straightforward for something so insane. 1 year of marriage. He'd live in her penthouse, attend events as her husband, maintain the appearance of a loving relationship. In exchange, he'd receive a monthly stipend, full health care coverage, and a lump sum payment of $500,000 at the end of the term. $500,000. Emma's surgery cost $80,000. With that kind of money, he could pay for the surgery, get them a real apartment, maybe even go back to school, finish his degree, get a job that didn't involve being yelled at by assholes in suits. But it felt wrong. All of it felt wrong. He read the clause about fidelity. Neither party was permitted to engage in romantic or sexual relationships outside the marriage during the term of the contract. Any infidelity would result in immediate termination and forfeiture of all compensation. So not only would he be a fake husband, he'd be a celibate fake husband. Not that his dating life had been particularly active lately. Between 3 jobs and single parenthood, he barely had time to sleep, let alone date. But still, the idea of someone else controlling that part of his life made his skin crawl. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but these days unknown numbers might be job offers. "Hello?" "Mr. Cole?" Victoria Hale's voice was unmistakable. Cool, controlled, vaguely threatening. "Have you made a decision? How did you get my number?" "I told you, I make it my business to know things. Have you read the contract?" Ethan glanced at Emma, absorbed in her cartoons. He stepped into the bathroom and shut the door. "Yeah, I read it. It's insane." "That's not an answer." "Why me?" he asked again. "Seriously, what's the angle here? You're obviously smart enough to figure out there's easier ways to do this." Silence on the other end. Then, "I have my reasons." "That's not good enough." "It has to be." Victoria's voice softened slightly, though it still had that edge. "I'm not asking you to understand my motivations, Mr. Cole. I'm asking you to make a choice. Your daughter needs help. I'm offering it. Everything else is irrelevant." "Except it's not." Ethan sat on the edge of the bathtub. "You're asking me to lie. To everyone. My daughter, my friends, hell, the whole world. You're asking me to pretend to be something I'm not." "We all pretend to be something we're not. I'm just putting a contract on it." "That's a pretty bleak worldview." "It's a realistic one." He heard something rustle on her end, like papers being moved. "I'll be honest with you, since you seem to value honesty. I need to be married for business reasons. My board won't promote me to permanent CEO unless I demonstrate stability. A husband provides that stability. It's archaic and sexist, but it's the reality I'm working with. So marry someone you actually like." "I don't like anyone." She said it so matter-of-factly that Ethan almost laughed. And more importantly, I don't trust anyone. This way, everything is clear. No emotions, no complications, just a transaction. What happens after the year? We divorce amicably. You get your money, I get my position. We never see each other again. Ethan closed his eyes. In the other room, he could hear Emma laughing at something on TV. That sound, that pure, unself-conscious joy, was everything to him. She deserved to laugh like that for the next 60 years, not have her life cut short because her dad couldn't afford to save her. If I do this, he said slowly, I want some changes to the contract. Such as? Emma comes first, always. If she needs me, I'm there. I don't care what event you've got planned or who I'm supposed to be schmoozing. She's non-negotiable, acceptable. And I want the healthcare coverage to start immediately, before I sign anything. I want proof that you can actually deliver on this. Done. I'll have my assistant send over the insurance information tonight. Ethan opened his eyes and stared at the cracked tile floor. Why does this feel like I'm making a deal with the devil? Victoria actually laughed. It was sharp and brief, but it was there. Because you probably are. But I'm a devil who pays well. Do we have an agreement? I need one more day. Mr. Cole, one day. I need to talk to Emma. Figure out how to explain this. Another pause. You're not going to tell her the truth. Of course not, but I need to tell her something. She's 6, not stupid. Fine. You have 24 hours. After that, the offer expires. Victoria hung up without saying goodbye. Ethan sat there for a long moment, phone in hand, trying to figure out how his life had turned into a bad TV drama. 2 days ago, he'd been a waiter with problems. Now he was apparently considering a fake marriage to a billionaire. He went back out to the living room. Emma was lying on her stomach, chin propped on her hands, completely engrossed in animated characters doing animated character things. Hey, Em. Yeah? She didn't look away from the screen. What if Daddy had to go away for a while? For work? That got her attention. She rolled over and sat up. Go away where? Not far. Still in the city, but I might have to stay somewhere else sometimes. You'd stay with Mrs. Chen downstairs like you do now when I work late shifts. Emma's face fell. For how long? I don't know yet. Maybe a while. Is it because of money? The question hit him in the chest. What makes you say that? I heard you on the phone last week with the hospital lady. You said we couldn't afford something. Emma picked at the carpet. Is it my fault? No, hey, look at me. Ethan moved to the floor beside her. None of this is your fault, you hear me? Not one single bit. But if I wasn't sick, you're not sick. You just need a little help with your heart, that's all. And Daddy's going to make sure you get that help. How? Good question. How did you explain to a 6-year-old that you were going to marry a stranger for money? You didn't. You lied, like you'd been lying for months about why the lights sometimes got shut off or why they ate cereal for dinner 3 times a week. I got a new job opportunity, Ethan said. A really good one, but it means I'll be busy for a while. It also means we'll have money for your doctor appointments and a nicer place to live. Emma studied him with those 2 serious eyes. Will you be happy? The question surprised him. I'm happy when I'm with you. That's not what I asked. Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. I'll be fine, sweetheart. I promise. She didn't look convinced, but she nodded anyway. Then she crawled into his lap, even though she was getting too big for it, and put her head on his shoulder. I don't want you to go away. I know. Ethan wrapped his arms around her. But sometimes we have to do hard things. You're brave when you get your blood drawn, right? Even though it hurts? I guess. This is like that. Hard, but necessary. And when it's done, everything will be better. He hoped that was true. He had no idea if it was true. But Emma nodded against his shoulder, and he held her while the cartoons played, and tried not to think about what he was about to do. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ethan pulled out the contract one more time. He read every word, every clause, every stipulation. He looked for loopholes or tricks, but it seemed depressingly straightforward. Victoria Hale wasn't trying to con him. She was just trying to buy him. He thought about calling someone. His brother maybe, though they hadn't spoken in 2 years. His college roommate, though that friendship had faded after Emma was born, and Ethan's life became unrecognizable. The truth was, he didn't have anyone to call. He'd been so focused on survival that he'd let every other relationship wither. So it was just him, sitting at a card table that served as their kitchen table, desk, and craft station, making a decision that would change everything. He picked up a pen, put it down, picked it up again. Your daughter deserves a chance. Don't let pride kill her. Victoria's words echoed in his head. She'd known exactly what to say, exactly where to press. It should have made him angry being manipulated like that. Instead, he just felt tired. He signed the contract. His handwriting looked shaky on the expensive paper, like his signature knew this was a mistake, even if he was pretending otherwise. But it was done. He'd signed away a year of his life to a woman he didn't know for money he desperately needed. Ethan took a photo of the signed contract with his phone, then slid the original back into the folder. He'd drop it at the hotel's front desk in the morning, like Victoria instructed. Then he went to bed and didn't sleep. But the next morning, Ethan dropped Emma at school and took 2 buses to the Celestial Hotel. The lobby was exactly as intimidating as he remembered. All marble and crystal, and staff members who looked at him like they were calculating whether to call security. He walked up to the front desk, where a woman with perfect makeup and a name tag that read Sarah gave him a professional smile. "Can I help you?" Ethan slid the folder across the counter. "I need to leave this for Victoria Hale." Sarah's smile didn't waver, but something changed in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or pity. "Of course, sir. I'll make sure she receives it." "Thanks." Ethan turned to leave, then stopped. "Is she here, Miss Hale?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss our guests' schedules." "Right, yeah, of course." He made it halfway across the lobby before he heard his name. Mr. Cole. Victoria stood by the elevators, dressed in another power suit, this one navy with subtle pinstripes. Her hair was different than yesterday, looser, falling in waves instead of pulled back. It made her look younger, almost approachable. Almost. "You signed it," she said, not a question. "Yeah." "Good." She pressed the elevator button. "Come with me. We have logistics to discuss." "Now?" "I have to pick up Emma from school at 3. This won't take long." The elevator arrived and Victoria stepped in. She looked at him expectantly. Ethan followed. The doors closed, and they rode in silence to the penthouse level. Victoria's heels clicked against the marble as she led him down the hallway to a door he hadn't noticed during his first visit. She unlocked it and gestured him inside. It was an office. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a desk that probably cost more than a car, windows overlooking the city. Victoria moved behind the desk and pulled out a leather binder. "First thing, healthcare. I've already added you and Emma to my company's executive plan. Here's your insurance card." She slid it across the desk. "The cardiac surgeon I mentioned is Dr. Sarah Chen at Metropolitan Hospital. I've scheduled a consultation for next week. Emma's primary care physician will receive all her records by end of business today." Ethan picked up the insurance card. His name was embossed on it in gold letters. "This is real." "Did you think I was lying?" "I don't know what I thought." Victoria opened the binder. "Second, living arrangements. You'll move into the penthouse by the end of the week. I'll have movers pack up your current apartment. Make a list of anything you want to keep." "Wait, what? We're living together?" "We're married, or we will be by Friday. Married couples live together, Mr. Cole." "You said this was just for appearances. I thought I'd keep my place. Your place is a studio above a laundromat that's 3 weeks from eviction. Emma will have her own room here. You'll have your own space. The apartment has 4 bedrooms. Victoria's expression was unreadable. "Unless you'd prefer to explain to the media why my husband lives separately." She had a point, a frustrating, logical point. "Fine. But Emma needs stability. I don't want her scared. I'm not interested in scaring children, Mr. Cole. The penthouse has been child-proofed. I've hired a nanny to help with school pickups and homework when you're unavailable." "I don't need a nanny." "You do if you're going to be attending events with me 3 nights a week. Emma will be well cared for. I've run background checks. The woman I've selected has 15 years of experience and impeccable references." Ethan's head was spinning. This was happening too fast. Yesterday, he'd been unemployed and desperate. Today, he apparently had health insurance and a nanny. "What events?" "Galas, fundraisers, board dinners. I'll give you a schedule. You'll need appropriate attire. I'm sending a stylist to take your measurements this afternoon." "A stylist?" You'll be representing my company. You need to look the part. Victoria closed the binder. And you'll need a story for how we met. A story. People will ask. The media will definitely ask. We need our narrative straight. Ethan sat down in one of the chairs across from her desk without being invited. Okay. How did we meet? Victoria leaned back in her chair. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked uncertain. I was thinking something simple. We met at a charity event. Hit it off. Kept in touch. Fell in love. Nobody's going to believe that. Why not? Because we don't look like we fell in love. We look like a business transaction. Ethan gestured between them. You're you. I'm a waiter who gets fired for defending teenage girls. What charity event would we both be at? Victoria's jaw tightened. I volunteer. At what? Various causes. Name one. She was silent for a beat too long. Children's literacy programs. Okay. So we met at a literacy fundraiser. I was there because you volunteer too. You read to kids at the public library. Do I? You do now. Victoria pulled out her phone and typed something. I'll have my publicist create a paper trail, volunteer hours, donation records. It needs to look authentic. This was insane. They were inventing an entire fake relationship, complete with fake volunteer work and fake meet cutes. Ethan rubbed his face. This is never going to work. It has to work. Victoria's voice had an edge now. I've invested too much in this company to lose it because the board thinks I'm not stable enough. This merger needs to happen, and it won't happen if I'm not CEO. What merger? That's not your concern. If I'm your husband, even a fake one, seems like I should know what I'm supporting. Victoria studied him for a long moment. Then she turned her laptop around so he could see the screen. It showed a news article. Hale Industries Eyes acquisition of Northwest Tech. Board demands leadership stability. Northwest Tech, she said. $15 billion company. If we acquire them, Hale Industries becomes the largest tech conglomerate on the West Coast. But the board won't approve the acquisition unless I'm permanent CEO, and they won't make me permanent CEO unless I'm married. That's archaic. That's business. My father built this company from nothing. When he died, I was supposed to take over. But the board thinks a 29-year-old unmarried woman can't handle a merger this size. They want someone settled. She said the word like it tasted bad. So I'll give them settled. You. Ethan looked at the article, then at Victoria. There was something under her Ice Queen routine, something wounded. They think you can't do it. They think I'm my father's little girl playing businesswoman. They want to install their own CEO and push me out entirely. So this is about proving them wrong. This is about keeping what's mine. Victoria closed the laptop. My father left me this company. I'm not losing it because a bunch of old men think I need a husband to be competent. For the first time, Ethan felt something like respect for her. She was fighting her own battle, same as him. Different circumstances, same desperation. Okay, he said. When's the wedding? Friday. Small ceremony. Just us and 2 witnesses. I've already filed the license. That's in 3 days. Is that a problem? It should have been. Everything about this should have been a problem. But Ethan thought about Emma's insurance card in his pocket, about the consultation with Dr. Chen, about the fact that for the first time in 6 years, he might actually be able to give his daughter the life she deserved. No, he said. No problem. Victoria nodded. Good. I'll have my assistant send you all the details. Be at City Hall at noon on Friday. Wear something decent. I'll do my best. He stood to leave, but Victoria's voice stopped him again. Mr. Cole. He turned. She was watching him with those dark eyes, and there was something in her expression he couldn't read. This doesn't have to be miserable. I'm not a monster, despite what you might think. I just need this to work. I'll make it work, Ethan said. For Emma. For Emma, Victoria echoed. But the way she said it sounded like she was agreeing to something else entirely. Ethan walked out of the Celestial Hotel feeling like he'd just signed away more than a year of his life. He'd signed away something fundamental, something he couldn't quite name. The insurance card felt heavy in his pocket, heavier than plastic had any right to feel. The bus ride back to his neighborhood took 40 minutes, and he spent every one of them staring out the window, watching the city change from glass towers to worn storefronts. By the time he got off at his stop, he'd almost convinced himself this was all some elaborate stress dream. Then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Grace Park, Ms. Hale's assistant. Stylist will arrive at your residence at 2 p.m. today. Please be available for measurements. Moving company scheduled for Thursday, 9 a.m. Attached is preliminary schedule for next month's events." The attachment was a PDF with more social engagements than Ethan had attended in his entire life. Galas, fundraisers, board dinners, something called a yacht reception that made him want to laugh and cry at the same time. He'd never been on a yacht, he'd never worn a tuxedo, and now he was apparently going to do both while pretending to be married to a woman who looked at him like he was a problem to be managed. Mrs. Chen was waiting outside the laundromat when he got back. She was maybe 70, had lived in the building for 30 years, and had been watching Emma after school since Ethan's childcare arrangement fell through 6 months ago. He paid her what he could, which was never enough, but she always said Emma was a joy and didn't complain. "Ethan, good, you're back. Emma's upstairs doing her homework. She had a snack already." Mrs. Chen peered at him over her glasses. "You look terrible. You sick?" "Just tired. Long couple of days." She didn't look convinced. "That girl asked me 3 times when you'd be home. She worries about you." Guilt twisted in Ethan's stomach. "I know. I'm working on that. You're a good father, but you can't pour from an empty cup, you know. You need to take care of yourself too." If only she knew. In 3 days, he'd be living in a penthouse, married to a billionaire, with a full cup whether he wanted it or not. "I'm trying, Mrs. Chen. Actually, I need to talk to you about something. I got a new job. It's going to require some changes." Her eyebrows rose. "What kind of changes?" "We're moving. End of the week. But I wanted to give you this." He pulled out an envelope he'd prepared that morning. It had most of his remaining cash in it. "For watching Emma all these months. I know I haven't always been able to pay you properly." Mrs. Chen waved him off. "You don't need to. Please, take it. You've been a lifesaver." She accepted the envelope reluctantly, then surprised him by pulling him into a hug. She smelled like laundry detergent and jasmine. "You're going to be okay, Ethan. You and that little girl. I know it." Ethan hugged her back, throat tight. "Thank you for everything." He climbed the stairs to his apartment, each step creaking in familiar ways. This place had been his home for 3 years. It was a dump, but it was his dump. Emma had learned to ride her bike on the sidewalk out front. They'd had birthday parties here, movie nights, late-night talks when she couldn't sleep because her chest hurt. Now they were leaving it all behind. Emma was indeed at the card table, bent over her homework with intense concentration. She'd changed out of her school uniform into sweatpants and a shirt with a unicorn on it. Her hair was falling out of its ponytail. "Hey, kiddo, how was school?" She looked up, and her whole face brightened. "Daddy, Mrs. Peterson said my butterfly drawing is going up tomorrow, and Jake shared his cookies at lunch even though I forgot mine. That was nice of Jake." Ethan dropped his jacket on the back of a chair. "What are you working on?" "Math. It's easy today, just addition." She went back to her worksheet, pencil moving carefully. "Mrs. Chen said you had a meeting. Was it about the job?" "Yeah, I got it." Emma's pencil stopped. "Really?" "Really, which means we're going to have some big changes coming up. Good changes," he added quickly, seeing her face. "But different." "What kind of different?" Ethan pulled out a chair and sat beside her. "Remember how I said I might have to stay somewhere else sometimes? Well, this job comes with housing, a really nice apartment, big enough for both of us to have our own rooms." Emma's eyes widened. "My own room?" "Your own room. And we'll be closer to your school, so no more long bus rides." That was a lie. They'd actually be farther. But Victoria had mentioned something about a driver. Ethan was trying not to think too hard about having a driver. "When do we move?" "Thursday?" "This Thursday? But that's only 2 days. I know it's fast, but the apartment's ready now, and the sooner we move, the sooner we can get settled." Ethan touched her hand. "I know this is a lot. If you're scared, I'm not scared." Emma chewed her lip. "Will Mrs. Chen come visit?" "Of course, anytime you want." "And can I bring all my stuffed animals?" "Every single one." She seemed to consider this. Then, with the adaptability of 6-year-olds everywhere, she shrugged and went back to her math. "Okay, can we get pizza for dinner to celebrate?" They couldn't afford pizza, but Ethan looked at his daughter, at her purple pencil and her careful numbers, and thought about the insurance card in his pocket and the money that would be in his account by the end of the week. Yeah, he said, we can get pizza. The stylist showed up at 2 on the dot. His name was Marco. He had an accent Ethan couldn't place, and he looked around the studio apartment like he'd just stepped in something unpleasant. This is where you live? Marco's nose wrinkled. Ms. Hale said you needed wardrobe assistance, but I didn't realize it was this dire. Ethan bristled. It's clean. It's tiny. Where do you keep your suits? I don't have suits. Marco's expression suggested this was a personal failing on par with murder. Of course you don't. Well, let's see what we're working with. Stand up, arms out. For the next hour, Ethan was measured, assessed, and critiqued. Marco took notes on a tablet while muttering things like, decent shoulders at least, and we'll need to do something about the hair. Emma watched from the couch, clearly entertained by the spectacle of her father being treated like a mannequin. You're tall, which helps. Good bone structure. Ms. Hale has excellent taste, I'll give her that. Marco circled him like a shark. But we have work to do. The wedding is Friday, yes? Yeah. Then we'll start with the ceremony. Simple suit, nothing too flashy, charcoal or navy. You'll need dress shoes. When's the last time you wore dress shoes? My ex-wife's funeral. The words came out harder than Ethan intended. Marco's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry, we'll get you sorted. For the events after, you'll need 2 tuxedos, several suits, casual wear for daytime appearances. I'll have everything delivered to the penthouse by Saturday. How much is this going to cost? Ethan asked, even though he was pretty sure he didn't want to know the answer. Ms. Hale has an account. Don't worry about it. I'm worrying about it. Marco looked at him properly for the first time, really looked, and something shifted in his demeanor. You're actually nervous about this. The money, I mean. Wouldn't you be? Most of Ms. Hale's associates are more interested in spending her money than worrying about it. Marco packed up his measuring tape. You're different. That's good. She needs different. You know her well? I've dressed her for 5 years. I know her taste in clothing. Everything else? He shrugged. Ms. Hale doesn't let many people know her, but I'll tell you this, she doesn't do things halfway. If she chose you, there's a reason. After Marco left, Ethan stood in his small apartment and tried to imagine what that reason could possibly be. Victoria had said he wasn't random, but she wouldn't explain what she meant. The whole situation felt like walking through fog. He could see one step ahead, but nothing beyond that. Emma appeared at his elbow. Daddy, that man said you're getting married. Are you getting married? Ethan's heart stopped. He'd planned to tell her, but not like this, not from a stranger who assumed a 6-year-old already knew. Em, come here, we need to talk. They sat on the couch together, and Ethan tried to figure out how to explain the unexplainable. Remember how I said I got a new job? Well, it's a little more complicated than that. How complicated? The woman I'm working for, her name is Victoria. She needs someone to be her husband for a while, for business reasons, and I agreed to do it. Emma's forehead wrinkled. Like pretend? Sort of. We're going to get married for real, legally, but it's temporary, just for a year. Why? Because she needs to be married for her job, and we need the money for your surgery. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, do you love her? The question punched the air from his lungs. No, sweetie, I don't. This isn't like when I married your mom. This is just helping each other out. Does she love you? No? Then why does she want to marry you? Out of the mouths of children. Ethan pulled Emma close. It's complicated, Em. Adult stuff. But what's important is that this means we can afford your surgery. You can get better. We can have a nice place to live. And after a year, things go back to normal. Will she be mean to me? No, she promised she wouldn't be. And if she is, we leave. Deal? Emma nodded against his shoulder. Okay. But Daddy? Yeah? I still think it's weird. Ethan laughed, and it felt good to laugh about something. Yeah, kiddo, me too. Thursday morning arrived too fast. The movers showed up at 9 with boxes and organizational systems that made Ethan feel hopelessly inadequate. They packed up his entire life in under 3 hours. Clothes, dishes, Emma's toys, the few photos he'd kept from the marriage that ended when his wife's car hit black ice on the interstate 4 years ago. Emma watched them work with wide eyes, clutching her favorite stuffed elephant. We're really leaving. We really are. I'm going to miss my room. Ethan looked around the studio. Emma didn't have a room. She had a corner with a twin bed and a curtain he'd rigged up for privacy. But to her, it was a room, and she was leaving it behind. You're going to love your new room, he promised. It's bigger. You can decorate it however you want. The head mover, a guy named Steve with forearms like tree trunks, approached with a clipboard. That's everything, Mr. Cole. We'll have it at the penthouse by noon. Miss Hale's assistant sent over the access codes. Thanks. Nice place you're moving to, Steve grinned. Celestial Tower, penthouse level. You hit the lottery or something? Or something. Yeah, something like that. Like, they took a cab to the Celestial. Victoria had sent a car, but Ethan couldn't bring himself to use it. The cab driver tried to make conversation, but Ethan was too busy watching Emma's face as the buildings got taller and shinier. She pressed her nose to the window when they pulled up to the tower. Daddy, this is a hotel. Top floor is apartments, penthouses. We're living in a hotel? Basically. The lobby was just as intimidating as Ethan remembered, but this time the staff greeted him by name. Mr. Cole, welcome. Miss Hale is expecting you. I'll show you to the elevator. They rode up in silence. Emma's hand was tight in Ethan's, and he could feel her nerves matching his own. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, and Ethan's stomach dropped. He'd seen it before, but only the office section. Now he saw the whole thing. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. An open-plan living area with furniture that looked too expensive to sit on. A kitchen with marble countertops and appliances Ethan didn't know how to use. Art on the walls that was probably worth more than his car used to be. Victoria emerged from somewhere down a hallway. She'd traded her business suits for dark jeans and a white blouse, and her hair was down. She looked younger, more human, but her eyes were still guarded. You're here. Good. Her gaze dropped to Emma, and something in her expression shifted, softened. You must be Emma. Emma hid behind Ethan's leg. She's shy with new people, Ethan said. That's smart. Victoria crouched down to Emma's eye level, which surprised Ethan. I'm Victoria. Your dad is going to be staying here with me for a while, which means you get to stay here too. Have you seen your room yet? Emma shook her head. Would you like to? A tiny nod. Victoria stood and gestured down the hallway. It's the second door on the left. I had them paint it purple. Your dad said that's your favorite color. Emma's eyes went wide. She looked up at Ethan for permission. He nodded, and she took off running down the hall. They heard her gasp of delight from where they stood. You painted it purple? Ethan asked. I asked what her favorite color was. You said purple. Victoria's tone was defensive. Was that wrong? No, it's just, you didn't have to do that. She's 6 and her life is being turned upside down. The least I could do was give her a room she likes. Victoria walked toward the kitchen. The movers will be here soon. I've had the second bedroom prepared for you. There's also a study you can use as your space if you need privacy. Ethan followed her, still processing the fact that Victoria Hale had painted a room purple for a child she'd never met. Where's your room? Master suite at the end of the hall. You won't be in it, obviously. We maintain separate spaces. Obviously. Victoria poured herself water from a dispenser that probably cost more than most refrigerators. The nanny will start on Monday. Her name is Patricia. I've left her contact information on your bed along with Emma's new school schedule. New school schedule? Her current school's 40 minutes from here. I've enrolled her in Westridge Academy. It's 10 minutes away and has an excellent special needs program for her cardiac condition. Ethan's jaw tightened. You can't just change her school without asking me. I'm providing her with better education and medical supervision. Would you prefer she stay somewhere that's an hour-round trip and has no nurse on staff? I'd prefer you ask me before making decisions about my daughter. They stared at each other across the kitchen island. Victoria's expression was unreadable, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders. Finally, she set down her water glass. You're right. I should have consulted you. I'm not used to... She trailed off. I'm not used to considering other people's input. Well, get used to it. Emma is non-negotiable. We agreed on that. We did. Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. The movers are downstairs. I'll have them bring everything up. You should check on Emma. It was a dismissal, but Ethan let it go. He headed down the hallway, passing what looked like a library or study, a bathroom that could fit his old apartment inside it, and then Emma's room. She was standing in the middle of it, turning in slow circles. The walls were indeed purple, a soft lavender that somehow didn't look childish. There was a bed with a white frame, a desk, a bookshelf already filled with books, and a window seat overlooking the city. Boxes of her stuffed animals sat waiting to be unpacked. "Daddy, look!" Emma ran to the window. "I can see the whole city." Ethan joined her and the view took his breath away. They were high enough that the streets below looked like toys. The river sparkled in the distance. The sky seemed close enough to touch. "Pretty cool, right?" "It's the best room ever." Emma hugged his waist. "Does Victoria really have that much money?" "Yeah, she does." "Is she nice?" Ethan thought about Victoria painting this room purple, about her crouching down to talk to Emma at eye level, about the ice in her voice when she talked about her board of directors. "I think she's trying to be." "That's something, I guess." Smart kid. They spent the afternoon unpacking. The movers brought up boxes, and Ethan directed traffic while trying not to feel completely out of his depth. His clothes looked wrong hanging in the massive closet of his new room. His books looked silly on the built-in shelves. Everything he owned seemed to shrink in this space, like his possessions knew they didn't belong. Victoria disappeared into her office and didn't come out. Ethan was grateful for that. He needed time to process, to breathe, to figure out how he was supposed to live here. Emma adapted faster than he did. By evening, she'd arranged all her stuffed animals on her bed, organized her books by color, and discovered that the TV in the living room had every streaming service known to humanity. "Daddy, can we order food? Victoria said there's a restaurant downstairs that delivers." "Did she?" "She came by while you were unpacking your room. She said I could order whatever I wanted and just call the front desk." Ethan found Victoria in her office, typing on her laptop. He knocked on the open door. "Can we talk?" She looked up. "About?" "Ground rules. If we're living together, we need some boundaries." Victoria saved whatever she was working on and gestured to the chair across from her desk. Ethan sat, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. This woman was going to be his wife in less than 24 hours. It felt surreal. "What kind of boundaries?" Victoria asked. "Emma's meals, for one. I appreciate the offer to let her order from the restaurant, but I need to be the one making those decisions. She's my daughter." "Understood. And I'd appreciate it if you didn't make plans that involve her without running them by me first. The school thing, I get why you did it, but it blindsided me. I apologize for that. It won't happen again." Ethan studied her. She seemed sincere, but it was hard to tell with Victoria. Her face gave away nothing she didn't want it to. "Why did you paint her room purple?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "I told you, it's her favorite color. You could have just left it white, or whatever color it was. She wouldn't have cared." Victoria's fingers drummed on her desk. "I wanted her to feel welcome." "Why?" "Because she's a child who didn't choose this situation, and she deserves to feel comfortable in her own home." "This isn't her home, it's yours. We're just temporary tenants." Something flashed in Victoria's eyes. Anger, maybe, or hurt. "Is that what you think you are? Tenants? What else would we be? We're married, or we will be tomorrow." Victoria stood and walked to the window. "I know this arrangement is unconventional. I know you don't trust me. But if we're going to make this work, we need to at least pretend we're building something together, even if it's temporary. You want me to pretend we're a real family. I want you to pretend we're not strangers living in the same space." She turned to face him. Emma shouldn't feel like she's visiting a museum. This is where she lives now. That makes it her home, whether you like it or not. Ethan didn't have a good answer to that. Victoria was right, even if it annoyed him to admit it. "Okay, fair enough, but I need you to understand something too." "What's that?" "Emma comes first, always. If this arrangement ever feels like it's hurting her, I'm done. Contract or no contract." "I wouldn't expect anything less." Victoria returned to her desk. "Was there anything else?" "Yeah, tomorrow, the wedding. What do I need to know?" "Be at City Hall at noon. Wear the suit Marco delivered. There will be 2 witnesses, my assistant and my lawyer. The ceremony takes 10 minutes. We sign the papers, file them, and we're done." "And then?" And then we go to dinner. I've made reservations at Meridian. We need to be seen together in public, establish the relationship. Romantic. It's practical. Victoria's expression was unreadable. This is a performance, Mr. Cole. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. Ethan left her office feeling more unsettled than when he'd entered. He found Emma curled up on the couch, watching a movie about talking animals. She looked so small in this huge space, dwarfed by the furniture and the windows and the sheer scale of everything. He sat beside her and pulled her close. She smelled like the lavender soap from her new bathroom. Daddy? Yeah, Em? Are you happy here? The question hit him in the chest. Are you? I asked first. Smart kid. Too smart. I don't know yet. Ask me again in a week. Emma thought about this. Okay. But Daddy? Yeah? Victoria's sad. Ethan blinked. What makes you say that? Her eyes. They're sad, like yours get sometimes when you think I'm not looking. Emma yawned and snuggled deeper into his side. Maybe if we're nice to her, she'll be less sad. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He just held his daughter and watched talking animals solve their problems in 90 minutes while real life remained infinitely more complicated. Friday arrived with gray skies and the threat of rain. Ethan woke up in his new bedroom, disoriented by the unfamiliar ceiling and the silence. His old apartment had been filled with noise, pipes clanking, neighbors arguing, traffic from the street. Here, everything was insulated and quiet. It felt like being underwater. He showered in a bathroom that had heated floors and checked on Emma. She was still asleep, starfished across her purple bed with stuffed animals arranged around her like guards. He left her a note saying he'd be back by afternoon and to call if she needed anything. Victoria was already dressed when he emerged. She wore a simple cream-colored dress that probably cost more than his entire wardrobe, and her hair was styled in loose waves. She looked beautiful in a way that made Ethan uncomfortable, like he was seeing something he wasn't supposed to see. You clean up well, she said, looking him over. Marco's suit fit perfectly, charcoal gray with a white shirt and no tie. Ready? As I'll ever be. They took her car, a sleek black sedan that drove so smoothly Ethan barely felt the road. Victoria sat in the back with him, maintaining a careful distance, her attention on her phone. She was typing something, frowning at the screen. Nervous? Ethan asked. No. Why would I be nervous? Because you're getting married. This isn't a real marriage. Legally, it is. Victoria's fingers stilled on her phone. Does that bother you? I don't know. Maybe. I was married before, for real, and even though it ended badly, it meant something. Ethan looked out the window. This feels like a mockery of that. I'm sorry. Victoria's voice was quieter than usual. If I could do this another way, I would. Would you? She didn't answer. City Hall was exactly as romantic as Ethan expected, which was to say, not at all. Fluorescent lights, linoleum floors, and a bored clerk who'd probably officiated a dozen weddings that morning already. Victoria's assistant Grace was there, and a man in a suit who must have been the lawyer. They were the only witnesses. The ceremony was perfunctory. The clerk read from a script, asked them to repeat vows that felt hollow coming out of Ethan's mouth. Victoria's voice never wavered. She said, I do, like she was confirming a dinner reservation. You may kiss the bride. Ethan froze. He'd somehow not thought about this part. He looked at Victoria, who looked back at him with something almost like panic in her eyes. They'd never even shaken hands before yesterday, and now they were supposed to kiss. It's fine, Victoria said quietly. We can skip it. They need to believe it's real. Then make it quick. Ethan leaned in, and Victoria met him halfway. Their lips touched for maybe 2 seconds, the briefest contact, and Ethan felt nothing except the awkwardness of kissing a stranger while two people watched and a clerk waited to move on to the next couple. They broke apart. Victoria's expression was carefully neutral. Ethan felt like he'd just failed some kind of test he didn't know he was taking. Congratulations, the clerk said without enthusiasm. Sign here. They signed. Grace took photos on her phone for social media. Victoria had explained they needed to control the narrative. The lawyer handed them copies of the marriage license. And just like that, Ethan Cole was married to Victoria Hale. They walked out of City Hall into gray afternoon light. It had started to drizzle, and Victoria's driver was waiting with an umbrella. Well, Ethan said. That was efficient, Victoria finished. We have 2 hours before dinner. I need to stop by the office. You should go home, check on Emma. Home. She said it so casually, like the penthouse was already his home and not a gilded cage he'd walked into willingly. Yeah, okay. Victoria's phone rang. She answered it, her voice shifting into business mode. This is Hale. Yes, I saw the numbers. Tell them we're not budging on the acquisition price. She walked toward the car, already moving on to the next thing. Ethan stood there in the rain for a moment, his marriage certificate folded in his pocket, and wondered what the hell he'd just done. Dinner at Meridian was every bit as uncomfortable as Ethan had feared. The restaurant was the kind of place where servers presented menus like they were offering classified documents and spoke in hushed tones about the evening specials. Every table was occupied by people who looked like they belonged there. Designer clothes, expensive watches, the kind of confidence that came from never having to check price tags. Ethan felt like an imposter. Victoria ordered wine without looking at the menu. The server knew her by name, asked about her father, offered condolences that were clearly several years too late. She handled it with practiced grace, the same way she seemed to handle everything. Your father came here often? Ethan asked after the server left. Every Friday. It was his ritual. After he died, I kept the reservation. That's nice, honoring his memory. Victoria's smile was sharp. It's practical. This is where business happens in this city. You can't make deals if you're not at the table. Of course. Everything was business with her. Even grief. Their food arrived, something with foam and microgreens that Ethan couldn't identify. He ate it because it was there, but he couldn't have said what it tasted like. His attention kept getting pulled to the other diners, the ones who glanced their way and then looked away quickly, wondering, speculating. They're talking about us, Victoria said quietly. I noticed. Good. Let them talk. She reached across the table and took his hand. Her skin was cool, her grip firm. Smile. Look at me like you're in love. Ethan did his best. It must have been convincing enough because Victoria's expression softened into something that almost looked genuine. For the people watching, they were newlyweds sharing their first dinner as husband and wife. The performance continued through dessert. Victoria laughed at something he said, her hand on his arm. Ethan leaned in like he was telling her a secret. To anyone watching, they looked perfect together. But underneath the table, Victoria's leg was bouncing with nervous energy, and Ethan's jaw ached from smiling. They left the restaurant to a few camera flashes. Apparently word had gotten out about Victoria Hale's surprise wedding. She handled it smoothly, posing with Ethan for a few photos before her driver whisked them away. In the car, she dropped his hand like it burned. That was good, she said, back to business. Grace will make sure those photos circulate properly. By Monday, the narrative will be established. Glad I could help sell the story. That's what you're here for. Victoria was typing on her phone again. I'll be working late tonight. Don't wait up. We just got married. And? She looked at him genuinely confused. Nothing. Never mind. They rode the rest of the way in silence. Emma was waiting when Ethan got back to the penthouse. Patricia, the new nanny, was cleaning up dinner dishes. She was exactly what Ethan had expected, middle-aged, kind-faced, efficient. She greeted him warmly and assured him Emma had been wonderful before gathering her things to leave. You got married, Emma announced. Patricia said you got married today. I did. Ethan loosened his tie. How was your day? Good. Patricia made mac and cheese and we watched movies and she taught me a card game. Is Victoria here? She's working. On her wedding day? Yeah, kiddo, she's busy. Emma frowned. That's sad. When you married Mommy, you went on a trip together. Ethan's chest tightened. Emma rarely mentioned her mother anymore. This is different, Em. Victoria and I, we're not... It's complicated. Everything with you is complicated lately. She wasn't wrong. Ethan pulled her into a hug. I know, but some things stay simple, like us. We're still us, okay? No matter what else changes. Okay, Emma yawned. Can I stay up late since it's special? Nice try. Bed in 20 minutes. He got her settled in her purple room, read her a story about a mouse who went on adventures, and kissed her forehead. She was asleep before he made it to the door. Ethan wandered back to the living room, feeling untethered. He should have been exhausted, but he was too wired to sleep. He poured himself water from the fancy dispenser and stood by the windows, looking out at the city lights. This was his life now. This apartment, this view, this strange arrangement with a woman who treated marriage like a business transaction. He'd signed up for it, agreed to all of it, but standing here in the quiet, it felt impossible that any of this was real. He heard Victoria's office door open around midnight. She emerged looking tired, her hair falling from its style, her makeup slightly smudged. She stopped when she saw him. "You're still awake." "Couldn't sleep." Victoria moved to the kitchen and poured herself wine. She drank half the glass in one go. "Today was longer than I expected." "It's your wedding day. They tend to be long." "It's a Friday that required paperwork. Nothing more." "If you say so." She looked at him then, really looked, and Ethan saw the cracks in her armor, the exhaustion in her eyes, the tension in her shoulders. "Are you angry with me?" The question surprised him. "Should I be?" "Most people would be. I essentially bought you, bought a husband like I'd buy a suit or a car." "I had a choice." "Did you?" Victoria's laugh was bitter. "What kind of choice is it when the alternative is watching your daughter die?" Ethan set down his water glass carefully. "What do you want me to say, Victoria? That I'm here willingly?" "I am." "That I like it?" "I don't. But I'm here because it's the best option I have, and I'm going to make it work. Isn't that what you wanted?" "I don't know what I wanted." She finished her wine and set the glass in the sink. "I thought this would be simple. A transaction, like you said. But having you here, having Emma here, it's what?" Victoria shook her head. "Nothing. Forget it. I'm tired. I'm going to bed." She walked past him toward the hallway, and Ethan called after her. "Victoria?" She stopped but didn't turn around. "For what it's worth," Ethan said, "Emma thinks you're sad. She wants to make you less sad." Victoria's shoulders tensed. "She's perceptive." "She is, and she's kind. So maybe let her try." "I'll think about it." Victoria disappeared down the hallway, and Ethan heard her bedroom door close softly. He stood there for a while longer, watching the city and wondering what he'd gotten himself into. This wasn't what he'd expected. He'd expected cold transactions and clear boundaries. But Victoria Hale was turning out to be more complicated than her Ice Queen reputation suggested, and that scared him more than anything else. The first week of married life passed in a blur of awkward dinners and careful distance. Ethan and Victoria circled each other like boxers in a ring, polite but wary, neither willing to drop their guard. They had their routines. Victoria left for the office before Emma woke up and returned after she'd gone to bed. Ethan spent his days figuring out how to be unemployed in a penthouse, which turned out to be harder than being unemployed in a studio apartment. At least in the studio, there'd been things to fix, problems to solve. Here, everything worked perfectly, and the silence was suffocating. Emma's surgery consultation was scheduled for Tuesday. Ethan had been dreading it and counting down to it in equal measure. Patricia offered to come along, but he declined. This was something he needed to do himself. He didn't expect Victoria to show up. But there she was in the hospital parking lot, leaning against her car in a black coat and sunglasses, checking her phone. She looked up when Ethan and Emma approached. "What are you doing here?" Ethan asked. "I'm Emma's stepmother now." "Legally speaking." Victoria pocketed her phone. "I thought I should be present for medical appointments." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." Her gaze dropped to Emma, who was hiding behind Ethan's leg again. "Unless you'd prefer I didn't." Emma surprised them both by stepping forward. "You can come. Daddy gets nervous at hospitals." "I do not," Ethan protested. "You do too. You get all tense and you forget to breathe right." Victoria's lips twitched like she was fighting a smile. "Then I should definitely come. Someone needs to remind him to breathe." Dr. Sarah Chen turned out to be younger than Ethan expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and steady hands. She spent 20 minutes examining Emma, asking questions in a voice that never talked down to a 6-year-old. Emma answered seriously, describing how her chest felt tight sometimes and how she got tired faster than other kids. "You're doing great, Emma," Dr. Chen said, helping her sit up. "I'm going to talk to your parents for a minute, okay? You can play with the tablet over there if you want." Emma hopped down from the examination table and immediately claimed the tablet, already engrossed in whatever game was loaded on it. Dr. Chen turned to Ethan and Victoria, her expression shifting to professional concern. "Emma's condition is more advanced than the previous reports indicated. The ventricular septal defect has increased in size over the past 6 months. We need to operate soon, within the next month, ideally. Ethan's stomach dropped. A month? The last doctor said we had time. The last doctor didn't have access to the imaging I just reviewed. I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, but waiting is no longer an option. The longer we delay, the more strain we put on her heart. Victoria spoke for the first time. What's the success rate? The procedure has a 94% success rate in patients Emma's age. She's otherwise healthy, which works in her favor. But there are always risks with open-heart surgery. 6%, Ethan heard himself say. 6% chance something goes wrong. 6% chance of complications, which range from minor to serious. But 94% chance Emma comes through this and lives a completely normal life. Dr. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. I've performed this surgery hundreds of times. I'm very good at what I do. Victoria's hand found Ethan's under the table. Her grip was tight, grounding. When can you schedule it? I have an opening 3 weeks from today. I'd like to book it now if possible. Ethan looked at Emma, absorbed in the tablet, completely unaware that her life hung in the balance of percentages and surgical skill. 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, someone would cut open his daughter's chest and fix what was broken inside her. Or they'd try to, anyway. Do it, he said. Schedule it. Dr. Chen nodded and made notes on her computer. I'll have my office send over all the pre-op information. Emma will need to come in for blood work next week and a final consultation 2 days before surgery. Do you have any questions? Ethan had a million questions, none of which had answers that would make him feel better. Victoria asked the practical ones. Recovery time, post-op care, what to expect. She took notes on her phone, her face impassive, but her hand never left Ethan's. They walked out of the hospital in silence. Emma chattered about the game she'd been playing, oblivious to the tension radiating off both adults. Victoria's driver was waiting, and she hesitated before opening the door. I need to go back to the office. There's a board meeting at 3. She looked at Ethan. Will you be okay? Yeah, we'll be fine. Call me if you need anything. It was such a normal thing to say, such a wife thing to say, that it caught Ethan off guard. He nodded, not trusting his voice, and watched her car pull away. Emma tugged on his hand. Daddy, can we get ice cream? It's 11 in the morning. So? You said I was brave at the doctor. Brave people get ice cream. Ethan looked down at his daughter, at her hopeful face and her too small frame, and thought about scalpels and surgical percentages and the 6% chance he could lose her. Yeah, kiddo, let's get ice cream. They found a shop 2 blocks from the hospital and sat on a bench outside despite the cold. Emma got chocolate with gummy bears. Ethan got nothing and pretended he wasn't on the verge of falling apart. The doctor was nice, Emma said between licks. I liked her. Yeah, she seemed good. Am I really getting surgery? Ethan had been dreading this question. Yeah, I am, in 3 weeks. Will it hurt? You'll be asleep. You won't feel anything. What about after? After you'll be sore for a while, but then you'll feel better than you have in a long time. You'll be able to run and play like other kids. No more getting tired all the time. Emma considered this, her cone dripping onto her hand. Will you be there when I wake up? I'm not leaving your side, not for a second. What about Victoria? The question surprised him. What about her? Will she be there too? I don't know, maybe. Why? Emma shrugged. She held your hand at the doctor's. That was nice. Ethan hadn't realized Emma had noticed. Yeah, it was. I think she's lonely. What makes you say that? She's always by herself. Even when we're all in the apartment, she's in her office or her room, and she doesn't smile very much. Emma finished her cone and wiped her hands on a napkin. Do you think she likes us? Ethan had no idea how to answer that. I think she's trying to. She's just not very good at showing it. We should help her. Help her what? Be less lonely. That's what families do, right? Help each other? The word family hit Ethan in the chest. They weren't a family. They were a man, a woman, and a child playing house for money and business deals. But Emma didn't see it that way. To her, Victoria was her stepmother, and stepmothers were part of families, even if the whole arrangement was built on contracts and desperation. Yeah, Em, he said quietly. That's what families do. That night, Victoria came home earlier than usual. Ethan heard her keys in the lock around 7, which was practically afternoon for her. He was in the kitchen trying to figure out the fancy stove, which had more buttons than his old car. Emma was at the table doing homework. "You're home," Ethan said, stating the obvious. Board meeting ended early. Victoria set down her briefcase and loosened her coat. She looked tired, and there was something in her expression Ethan couldn't read. "How did the rest of the day go?" "Fine. We got ice cream, came home, Emma did some reading, normal stuff." "At 11 in the morning you got ice cream?" "I was being brave," Emma announced without looking up from her worksheet. Victoria's lips quirked. "I see. And was it good ice cream?" "The best. Daddy didn't get any, though. He was too sad." "Emma," Ethan warned, but Victoria was watching him now, really watching. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar," Emma giggled. Victoria pulled out a chair and sat across from her at the table, which was strange. She never just sat with them. She was always working or hiding in her office. "What are you working on?" Victoria asked Emma. "Math, word problems. They're annoying." "Can I see?" Emma slid her worksheet over and Victoria studied it. "Ah, these are annoying. Want help?" "You're good at math?" "I have an MBA. I'm very good at math." They bent over the worksheet together, Victoria explaining something about trains leaving stations and Emma nodding along. Ethan watched from the stove, feeling like he was witnessing something important but not understanding what it was. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Marcus Webb, EVP at Hale Industries. Heard you married Victoria." "Congratulations. We should meet." Ethan frowned at the message. He didn't know any Marcus Webb, and he definitely hadn't given out his number to Victoria's coworkers. He was about to delete it when another text came through. "Fair warning. Not everyone at the company is happy about this marriage. Watch your back." "Something wrong?" Victoria was looking at him. "Just spam." Ethan deleted both messages and pocketed his phone. He'd ask Victoria about it later when Emma wasn't around. They ate dinner together, which was also unusual. Victoria had been avoiding shared meals, claiming she ate at the office or wasn't hungry. But tonight she sat with them, picking at pasta Ethan had made, asking Emma about school. It should have felt normal. Instead, it felt like everyone was trying too hard. After Emma went to bed, Ethan found Victoria in her office. She was staring at her computer screen without really seeing it. "Can we talk?" She blinked and seemed to come back to herself. "Of course, come in." Ethan closed the door and showed her his phone. "Who's Marcus Webb?" Victoria's expression went cold. "Where did you see that name?" "He texted me, said not everyone's happy about our marriage. Marcus is the executive vice president. He wanted the CEO position when my father died." Victoria took Ethan's phone and read the messages, her jaw tightening. "He's been undermining me since I took over as interim. This is exactly the kind of thing he'd pull." "How did he get my number?" "I don't know, but I'll find out." She handed back the phone. "Delete those messages. Don't respond. And if he contacts you again, tell me immediately." "What's his problem with us being married?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Marcus believes I'm not qualified to be CEO. He thinks I'm too young, too inexperienced, too female. The marriage was supposed to shut down those arguments. If I'm settled and stable, the board has no reason to deny me the permanent position. But Marcus doesn't want you to have it. Marcus wants it for himself, and he's been very patient, waiting for me to fail." Victoria rubbed her temples. "The board vote is in 6 weeks. If they approve me as permanent CEO, I can move forward with the Northwest Tech acquisition. If they don't, Marcus gets the position and everything my father built gets absorbed into his vision." "Which is what?" "Profit over innovation. Short-term gains over long-term growth. He'll gut the company's research division, lay off half the staff, and sell off the parts that don't immediately generate revenue." Victoria's voice was tight with controlled anger. "My father spent 30 years building Hale Industries into something that mattered. I'm not letting Marcus destroy it in 30 months. Ethan sat down across from her. "So this marriage really is about saving the company. I told you that from the beginning." "I know, but hearing about Marcus, about the board vote, it makes it more real." Ethan studied her face. "What happens if you lose? If they vote for Marcus instead?" "Then you still get your money. The contract is ironclad. But I lose everything." "Your father's company." "My company. I've been running it for 2 years. I've increased revenue by 40%, expanded into 3 new markets, and positioned us for the biggest acquisition in our history. But none of that matters if the board thinks I need a man to validate my competence. The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut. That's incredibly unfair. That's business. Victoria closed her laptop. But you don't need to worry about it. Just show up to events, look like you're in love with me, and let me handle the rest. What if I want to help? She looked at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. Help how? I don't know. But you're fighting for something important. If there's anything I can do beyond standing around looking decorative, I'd like to try. Something shifted in Victoria's expression. Surprise, maybe, or suspicion. Why? Because Emma thinks you're lonely, and she thinks families are supposed to help each other. Ethan stood. I know this isn't a real marriage, but while we're doing this, we might as well do it right. He left before she could respond, but he felt her eyes on his back all the way to the door. The next week brought a new rhythm to the penthouse. Victoria started coming home for dinner more often, though she always retreated to her office afterward. Ethan and Emma established their own routines. Homework at the kitchen table, bedtime stories in the purple room, weekend mornings watching cartoons. Patricia turned out to be exactly what Emma needed. Patient, warm, never intrusive. She and Ethan developed an easy rapport, coordinating schedules and sharing updates about Emma's day. But the outside world was starting to intrude. Photos from their City Hall wedding had circulated online, and the media had questions. Who was Ethan Cole? Where did he come from? How did he meet Victoria Hale? Grace, Victoria's assistant, had prepared answers, but Ethan still felt like a fraud every time he repeated the story about meeting at a literacy fundraiser. The first public event was a charity gala on Saturday night. Ethan had been dreading it all week. Marco had delivered a tuxedo that fit like it was made for him, which it probably was. Patricia was staying late to watch Emma. Victoria had given him a briefing on who would be there and what to say, but it all blurred together in his mind. He was adjusting his bow tie for the 10th time when Victoria emerged from her room. She wore a floor-length navy gown that made her look like she'd stepped out of a movie. Her hair was swept up, showing the line of her neck and the small scar at her temple. She'd done something different with her makeup that made her eyes look bigger, less guarded. "You look beautiful," Ethan said before he could stop himself. Victoria paused, and for a second, she looked almost vulnerable. "Thank you. You clean up well yourself." "Marco's doing. Left to my own devices, I'd probably show up in jeans. That would certainly make an impression." She picked up a clutch from the hall table. "Ready?" "Not even a little bit." "Good. Honesty is refreshing." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "Ethan?" It was the first time she'd used his first name. It sounded strange in her voice, intimate in a way that made him uncomfortable. "Yeah? Just follow my lead tonight. If you get overwhelmed, squeeze my hand twice and I'll find us an exit. And if Marcus Webb tries to talk to you, be polite but brief. Don't give him anything he can use." "Use for what?" "Against us. Against me." Victoria's expression was hard to read. "He's looking for cracks. Don't give him any." The gala was held at the Grand View Hotel, a sprawling venue with crystal chandeliers and marble floors. Ethan felt out of place the moment they walked in. Everyone here moved with the same easy confidence Victoria had, the kind that came from never having to worry about rent or medical bills or where the next meal was coming from. Victoria's hand was on his arm, her touch light but possessive. They made their entrance, and heads turned. Conversations paused. Ethan could feel the weight of dozens of eyes assessing them, judging, speculating. "Smile," Victoria murmured. "You look like you're heading to your execution." "Feels like it. It's just a room full of rich people trying to impress each other. Most of them are more insecure than you are." Somehow, that helped. Ethan straightened his shoulders and managed something close to a natural smile. Victoria guided him through the crowd, introducing him to people whose names he immediately forgot. Everyone was polite, curious, careful. They asked how they'd met, how long they'd been together, when the wedding had been planned. Ethan repeated the story Grace had prepared until it almost felt true. They were at the bar getting drinks when Marcus Webb appeared. He was tall, maybe 50, with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He wore his tuxedo like armor and carried himself like someone who'd never been told no. "Victoria, what a surprise to see you here." His voice was smooth, cultivated. I thought you'd be too busy with merger preparations to attend social events. The Northwestern acquisition is proceeding on schedule, Marcus. I can manage both work and a personal life. Victoria's voice was ice. Have you met my husband? Ethan, this is Marcus Webb, our executive vice president. Ethan shook his hand. Marcus's grip was too firm, a power play. Congratulations on the marriage. Quite sudden, wasn't it? When you know, Ethan said, channeling every romantic comedy he'd ever been forced to watch. Indeed. Marcus's eyes were calculating. And what is it you do, Ethan? I don't believe Victoria mentioned your profession. I'm between opportunities right now, taking time to adjust to married life. How convenient. A kept man. Marcus said it lightly, like a joke, but the insult landed. Victoria's hand tightened on Ethan's arm. Ethan is writing a novel, actually. He's incredibly talented. This was news to Ethan, but he went with it. Still in the early stages, research phase. Fascinating. What's it about? Ethan's mind went blank. He had no idea what to say. Victoria jumped in smoothly. He's being modest. It's a thriller about corporate espionage. I've been helping with the research. I'm sure you have. Marcus's smile was sharp. Well, I won't keep you. Enjoy the evening. Oh, and Victoria, the board meeting next week. I trust you're prepared? Always. Marcus drifted away, and Ethan let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. That guy's an asshole. That guy is dangerous, and he's going to be a problem. Victoria downed her champagne in one go. Come on, we need to work the room. The next 2 hours were exhausting. Ethan smiled until his face hurt, made small talk with people who looked through him like he was glass, and tried not to think about how much the champagne they were serving probably cost. Victoria never left his side, her performance flawless. To anyone watching, they were the perfect couple, attentive, affectionate, completely in sync. But Ethan could feel the strain underneath. Victoria's laugh was a fraction too bright. Her touches were calculated, timed for maximum visibility. And when they danced, her body was stiff in his arms, like she was afraid of getting too close. You're tense, he murmured. I'm always tense. Even more than usual? Marcus is watching us, top of the stairs, by the railing. Ethan resisted the urge to look. What's he looking for? Evidence that this isn't real. That you're a prop I hired to fool the board. Victoria met his eyes. So we need to make it look real. How do we do that? Instead of answering, Victoria pulled him closer. Her hand moved from his shoulder to the back of his neck, and suddenly there was no space between them. She looked up at him, and her expression was so open, so vulnerable, that Ethan forgot they were acting. Like this, she whispered. Then she kissed him. It wasn't like the perfunctory kiss at City Hall. This was slow, deliberate, designed to convince everyone watching that they were madly in love. Victoria's lips were soft, and she tasted like champagne and something floral. Ethan's hands tightened on her waist before he could stop himself, pulling her closer, and he felt her breath catch. For a second, maybe two, it didn't feel like acting. Then Victoria pulled back, her eyes dark and unreadable. That should do it. Yeah, Ethan managed. That should do it. They didn't talk about the kiss on the way home. They didn't talk at all. The driver navigated through late-night traffic while Victoria checked her phone and Ethan stared out the window, trying to figure out why his heart was still racing. When they got back to the penthouse, Emma was asleep and Patricia was reading on the couch. She gathered her things with a knowing smile and left them alone. Victoria kicked off her heels and immediately looked smaller, more human. That went well? Grace sent photos. They're already circulating online. Good. Mission accomplished. Marcus looked furious when we left, which means we did something right. Ethan loosened his bow tie. Does it ever bother you? The performance? The constant pretending? You don't pretend in business. You strategize. But Victoria's voice lacked conviction. That's not what I asked. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep and the apartment's too quiet, I think about what it would be like if any of this were real. What do you mean? If I'd met you naturally, if we'd fallen in love like normal people, if this marriage were something more than a business arrangement. Victoria laughed, but it sounded sad. But that's not how my life works. Everything's a transaction. Everyone wants something. What do you want? The question seemed to catch her off guard. I want my company. I want my father's legacy protected. I want to prove to everyone who doubted me that I'm more than just his daughter playing CEO. That's what you want professionally. What about personally? Victoria looked at him, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked lost. I don't know. I stopped thinking about personal wants a long time ago. They're inconvenient. They make you vulnerable. They also make you human. Being human is overrated in my line of work. Ethan moved closer, not touching her, but close enough that he could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Why did you really choose me, Victoria? The truth this time. I told you. No, you told me the practical reasons, the excuses. But there are hundreds of men in this city you could have picked. Why me specifically? Victoria's jaw tightened. Because you were kind to that waitress. When you defended her at the restaurant, you lost your job, but you did it anyway. You chose integrity over survival. She turned away. And I needed someone with integrity, someone who wouldn't sell me out the first time Marcus offered them money or threatened them. I needed someone decent. That's it? I passed some kind of morality test? Isn't that enough? It should have been. It was a logical answer, a Victoria answer, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling she was still hiding something. When you said I wasn't random, what did you mean? Victoria's shoulders tensed. It's late. We should get some sleep. Victoria, what? Please. Her voice cracked slightly. Not tonight. I'm too tired to have this conversation. Ethan wanted to push, but the exhaustion in her voice stopped him. Okay. Another time, she agreed, but it sounded like a lie. She disappeared down the hallway to her room, and Ethan stood in the living room for a while, replaying the kiss, the conversation, the sadness in her eyes when she talked about wanting things to be real. This was supposed to be simple. A transaction, like she kept saying. But nothing about Victoria Hale was simple, and Ethan was starting to realize he'd signed up for something far more complicated than he'd understood. The following Tuesday, Ethan took Emma for her pre-surgery blood work. She was nervous, gripping his hand tight as they waited in the lab. The phlebotomist was gentle, talking Emma through each step, but she still cried when the needle went in. You're so brave, Ethan told her afterward, pressing a cotton ball to her arm. The bravest kid I know. It hurt. I know, baby, but it's done now. And you did great. They were walking out to the parking lot when Emma tugged on his hand. Daddy, is Victoria coming to my surgery? I don't know. Why? I want her to. Is that weird? Ethan crouched down to Emma's level. It's not weird, but Victoria's very busy with work. She might not be able to. Ask her, please. There was something in Emma's voice, a need that went beyond simple request. She'd been trying so hard to be okay with everything, the move, the new school, the fake marriage. But now, facing surgery, she wanted reassurance. She wanted family, even if that family was held together by contracts and pretense. I'll ask her, Ethan promised. That night, he found Victoria in her office, as usual. She was on the phone speaking rapid fire to someone about acquisition terms and shareholder approval. She gestured for him to wait, wrapping up the call with the efficiency of someone who'd had 1,000 similar conversations. Sorry, the Northwestern board is being difficult. She rubbed her eyes. What's up? Emma wants to know if you'll be at the hospital for her surgery. Victoria's hand stilled. When is it? Next Friday, early morning. We have to be there by 6. I have a board presentation at 9. I know, you don't have to come. I just promised Emma I'd ask. Victoria was quiet, her expression unreadable. Then she opened her laptop and started typing. I'm moving the presentation to the afternoon. I'll be there. You don't have to do that. I know I don't have to, but she asked, and she's 6, and she's about to have open-heart surgery, so I'll be there. Victoria's voice was matter of fact, but there was something underneath it, something almost fierce. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm her stepmother. It's what I'm supposed to do. Victoria, was there anything else? It was a dismissal, but a gentle one. Ethan shook his head and left her to her work. But as he closed the door, he heard her make another call. Grace, move Friday's board presentation to 2 p.m. I don't care what you have to cancel. Just make it happen. The next few days crawled by. Emma started at Westridge Academy and came home with stories about new friends and a teacher who let them have class outside when the weather was nice. She seemed happy, or as happy as a kid could be knowing surgery was looming. Victoria started coming home earlier, joining them for dinner more often. She helped Emma with homework, taught her card games that were probably too advanced, but Emma loved anyway, and listened to endless stories about school with more patience than Ethan would have expected. One night, Ethan found them on the couch together, watching a nature documentary. Emma was curled against Victoria's side, nearly asleep, and Victoria's arm was around her shoulders. Victoria looked up when Ethan entered, and there was something soft in her expression he'd never seen before. "She wanted to wait for you," Victoria said quietly, "but I think she lost the battle." Ethan gathered Emma up, and she mumbled something incoherent about penguins. He carried her to bed and tucked her in, kissing her forehead. When he came back out, Victoria was still on the couch, the documentary playing to an empty room. She looked small somehow, vulnerable in a way that didn't fit with her usual Ice Queen persona. "She's getting attached to you," Ethan said. "I know. That's going to make it harder when this ends." "I know that too." Victoria turned off the TV. "But I can't help it. She's easy to care about." "Yeah, she is." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Victoria spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "My father died of a heart attack. Sudden. One minute he was fine, the next he was gone. I didn't get to say goodbye." Ethan's throat tightened. "Victoria, Emma's going to be okay. Dr. Chen is one of the best. The success rate is excellent, but I keep thinking about that 6%. About what happens if something goes wrong." She looked at him, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I can't lose another person I care about." It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to him. Ethan moved to sit beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "She's going to be okay. She has to be." "You don't know that." "No, but I have to believe it, otherwise I can't function." Victoria leaned against him just slightly, and Ethan put his arm around her. She was shaking, he realized. This woman who faced down corporate executives and hostile boards was shaking at the thought of a 6-year-old girl she'd known for 2 weeks not making it through surgery. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly, "for caring about her, for being here." "I'm not good at this," Victoria whispered, "at caring, at being part of something." "You're doing better than you think." They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the quiet, both pretending this was still just an arrangement, still just a performance. But Ethan could feel the lie unraveling between them, threads pulling loose one by one. And he had no idea what would be left when it finally came apart. The night before Emma's surgery, nobody slept. Ethan lay in his bed staring at the ceiling, watching shadows move across the expensive plaster. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw operating rooms and machines and doctors and masks. He saw the 6%. He'd read every article he could find about ventricular septal defect repairs, watched surgery videos on YouTube until he felt sick, memorized statistics that didn't make him feel any better. 94% success rate sounded good until you remembered that 6% meant someone's child didn't come home. Around 3 a.m., he gave up on sleep and went to check on Emma. She was awake too, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars Patricia had helped her stick to the ceiling. "Can't sleep either?" Ethan sat on the edge of her bed. "I'm scared," Emma whispered. "Me too, kiddo." "Really?" "Really. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the thing even though you're scared." Emma was quiet for a moment. "What if I don't wake up?" The question punched all the air from Ethan's lungs. "You're going to wake up. But what if I don't? Then I'll come find you and drag you back myself, because I'm not losing you. Not now, not ever. You understand me?" Emma nodded, but tears were sliding down her cheeks. Ethan pulled her close, and she cried into his shoulder while he held her and tried not to fall apart himself. She was so small. 6 years old and facing something that terrified grown men. It wasn't fair. None of this was fair. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Em. More than anything in the world." They stayed like that until Emma finally dozed off around 4. Ethan tucked her in and kissed her forehead, then went back to his own room. He had 2 hours before they needed to leave for the hospital. 2 hours to hold himself together. He was in the kitchen making coffee he didn't want when Victoria appeared. She wore yoga pants and an old Stanford t-shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. No makeup, no armor. She looked younger like this, almost fragile. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. You either? No. Victoria poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter. How's Emma? Scared. We both are. That's normal. Doesn't make it easier. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she set down her mug and moved closer. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you before we go to the hospital. Something in her tone made his stomach tighten. What? It's about why I chose you. The real reason. She wasn't looking at him now, her gaze fixed on her coffee. You asked me before and I gave you half-truths, but you deserve to know the whole story. Okay? Victoria took a breath. 20 years ago, I was 8 years old. My father had just started Hale Industries, and we lived in a small apartment in a bad neighborhood. He worked constantly, trying to get the company off the ground. I was alone a lot. Ethan waited. He could feel something massive coming, something that would change everything. There was a group of older kids who used to corner me on my way home from school. They'd take my lunch money, my backpack, whatever I had. I learned to run fast, but they always caught me eventually. Victoria's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. One day they cornered me in an alley. There were 4 of them, and they were bigger than usual, meaner. I thought they were going to really hurt me. Victoria, but then this boy showed up. He was maybe 12, skinny, with dark hair and eyes that were too serious for his age. He told them to leave me alone. They laughed at him, so he got between us and told them if they wanted to get to me, they'd have to go through him first. Ethan's heart was pounding now. He knew where this was going, but it felt impossible. They beat him up pretty badly, but he didn't move. He stayed between them and me until they got bored and left. Then he walked me home, even though he had a split lip and a black eye forming. Victoria finally looked at Ethan. His name was Ethan Cole. The world tilted sideways. That's not possible. You don't remember. You were in a car accident 6 months later, head trauma. Your mother told me you lost some memories from before the accident, but I never forgot you. Victoria's eyes were bright with unshed tears. You gave me your jacket because I was crying. It had a patch on it from some baseball team. You told me everything would be okay, that bullies were just scared people being loud. You stayed with me until my father came home. Ethan's mind was racing, trying to grab onto memories that weren't there. He remembered the accident. He'd been in the car with his dad when a drunk driver ran a red light. His dad died on impact. Ethan had woken up in the hospital with gaps in his memory that never filled back in. But he didn't remember an 8-year-old girl, didn't remember being anyone's hero. He couldn't finish the sentence. I know. And I didn't expect you to. Victoria set down her coffee. After that day, I saw you around the neighborhood sometimes. You always waved. You were kind to everyone, but especially to the kids who got picked on. You were this force for good in a place that didn't have a lot of good. Then the accident happened. Your family moved away. I never saw you again. But I never forgot you either. Victoria's voice was soft now. My father's business took off. We moved to a better neighborhood, better schools. I worked hard, got into Stanford, came back to help him build the company. But I always wondered what happened to the boy who saved me. Ethan felt like he was drowning. How did you find me? By accident. 6 months ago, I was at a conference downtown. I stopped for coffee at this little shop, and you were there. Working behind the counter, I recognized you immediately. You have the same eyes, the same way of standing. But you didn't recognize me, obviously. Why would you? I was 20 pounds heavier then. Different hair, different everything. You've been watching me for 6 months? Not watching, checking in on. I had someone pull your background. Found out about Emma, about your wife's death, about the medical bills, about how you were working 3 jobs and still drowning. Victoria's hands were clasped tight in front of her. And I saw an opportunity. I needed a husband I could trust. Someone with integrity who wouldn't betray me for money or power. And there you were. The boy who'd protected me, now a man who clearly still protected the people he loved. So this whole thing, the contract, the marriage, all of it, was about repaying some childhood debt? No, it was about helping someone who once helped me. And yes, helping myself in the process. Victoria's voice was defensive now. I know it sounds manipulative. I know I should have told you from the beginning, but I couldn't risk you saying no, and I couldn't let you lose Emma because you couldn't afford her surgery. Ethan stood up, needing distance. His head was spinning. You've been lying to me this entire time. I never lied. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. Is it? Would you have said yes if I told you the truth? If I'd said, hi, I'm the girl you saved 20 years ago. Want to enter a fake marriage with me? Victoria's voice rose to match his. You would have thought I was crazy. I would have at least had all the information. And Emma would still be waiting for a surgery you couldn't afford. They stared at each other across the kitchen, both breathing hard. Ethan felt betrayed and confused and angry, but underneath all of that was something else. Understanding, maybe. Or the beginning of it. You painted her room purple, he said finally. Victoria blinked at the non sequitur. What? When we moved in, you painted Emma's room purple before you even met her, because you cared about making her feel welcome. Ethan ran his hands through his hair. You've been trying to take care of us this whole time. Not because the contract said to, but because you wanted to. I don't know what I want anymore, Victoria admitted. I thought I did. I thought I could keep this clinical and controlled. But then you moved in, and Emma looked at me with those big eyes, and you were kind even when I didn't deserve it. And suddenly this wasn't just a business arrangement anymore. What is it then? I don't know. Victoria's voice broke. But I care about you, both of you, more than I planned to, more than I should. Ethan crossed back to her. Victoria looked up at him, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen, and he realized something. He'd been angry about the deception, but he wasn't angry that she cared. He was angry because he cared too. We need to talk about this, he said. Really talk. But not today. Today we focus on Emma. Victoria nodded. I'm sorry for not telling you sooner, for lying by omission. I'm not good at this, at being honest about feelings. Business I can do. This, she gestured between them. I don't have a roadmap for this. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out. Ethan touched her face and she leaned into his palm. After Emma's surgery, when she's safe and we can breathe again, we'll figure it out. Promise? Promise. They stood there for a moment, just breathing together. Then Emma appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed elephant. Is it time to go? Ethan glanced at the clock. 5:15. Yeah, kiddo, it's time. The drive to the hospital was quiet. Emma sat between Ethan and Victoria in the back seat, holding both their hands. The city was still dark, streetlights casting orange pools on empty roads. Ethan watched buildings slide past and tried not to think about everything that could go wrong. They checked in at 5:45. A nurse named Carol took them to a pre-op room where Emma changed into a hospital gown that was comically huge on her small frame. She looked even tinier in the hospital bed, swallowed by white sheets and medical equipment. Dr. Chen came in at 6:15, calm and confident. She explained the procedure one more time, answered Emma's questions about whether it would hurt. No, she'd be asleep. And whether she could eat ice cream after. Yes, as much as she wanted. Then the anesthesiologist appeared with his cart of equipment and explained what would happen. We're going to give you some medicine that makes you sleepy, he said to Emma. And when you wake up, the surgery will be all done. Sound good? Emma nodded, but her grip on Ethan's hand was crushing. Will my daddy be here when I wake up? I'm not leaving, Ethan promised. I'll be right here waiting for you. What about Victoria? Victoria moved to the other side of the bed. I'll be here too. We both will. Promise? I promise. Victoria kissed Emma's forehead, and Ethan saw tears in her eyes. The anesthesiologist started the IV. Emma's eyelids got heavy almost immediately. She fought it for a moment, trying to stay awake, but the medicine was stronger. Daddy? Her voice was slurred. I'm here, baby. Love you. Love you too. So much. Emma's eyes closed. Her breathing evened out. The nurse checked her vitals and nodded to Dr. Chen. Okay, we're ready to take her back. You two can wait in the surgical waiting area. Someone will update you every hour. They wheeled Emma away, and Ethan felt like his heart was being torn from his chest. Victoria's hand found his, gripping tight. She's going to be okay, Victoria whispered. She has to be. The waiting area was designed for maximum discomfort. Hard chairs, fluorescent lights, and that specific hospital smell that was equal parts antiseptic and anxiety. Ethan and Victoria claimed a corner and settled in for the longest wait of their lives. The first hour crawled by. Ethan tried to read a magazine and couldn't focus on a single word. Victoria checked her phone compulsively, Answering emails like staying busy would make time move faster. Neither of them ate the breakfast they'd bought from the cafeteria. A nurse came out at 7:30. Mr. and Mrs. Cole? Emma's doing well. They've started the procedure. Dr. Chen will update you in about an hour. The second hour was worse. Ethan paced. Victoria sat perfectly still, her face a mask, but her leg bounced with nervous energy. Other families came and went, their own dramas playing out. A woman got good news and cried with relief. A man got bad news and had to sit down before he fell down. Ethan couldn't watch. He went to the bathroom and splashed water on his face and tried to remember how to breathe. When he came back, Victoria was on her phone, but her expression was different, tense, angry. What's wrong? She showed him her screen. It was an email from Marcus Webb to the entire board of directors. The subject line read, "Concerns regarding CEO candidacy." Ethan scanned the email. It was professionally worded, carefully constructed, but the message was clear. Marcus was questioning Victoria's judgment, questioning her marriage, suggesting that her recent personal decisions showed instability rather than the maturity the board required. "He's making his move," Victoria said quietly. "He knows I'm distracted today. He's using it. Can he actually do this? He's planting seeds of doubt. By the time the board votes, he'll have them believing I'm not fit to lead." Victoria's voice was tight. "He's good at this. He's been doing it for months, just subtle enough that I couldn't prove it was sabotage." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. I should respond. I should call an emergency meeting. I should—" She stopped, looking at the surgical doors where Emma had disappeared hours ago. "But I can't. Not today. Today, Emma is all that matters." Ethan took her phone and set it aside. "Then don't. Let Marcus play his games. You can deal with it tomorrow." "If I wait, he wins. If you leave now, you break your promise to Emma. Is that worth it?" Victoria's jaw worked. She looked torn, caught between the company she'd been fighting for and the little girl she'd promised to stay for. Finally, she shook her head. "No, it's not worth it." "Then we wait. Together." The third hour brought Dr. Chen. She looked tired, but satisfied. "The repair went perfectly. We closed the defect, and Emma's heart is already showing improved function. She's in recovery now. You can see her in about 30 minutes. The relief was so intense Ethan had to sit down. Victoria was crying openly now, not trying to hide it. Dr. Chen smiled and patted her shoulder before heading back to the surgical wing. "She's okay," Victoria whispered. "She's really okay." "Yeah." Ethan's voice broke. "She is." They sat there for a moment, just breathing, letting the fear drain away. Then Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at it and frowned. "It's Grace. She never calls unless it's urgent." "Answer it." Victoria stepped away and Ethan watched her face change as she listened. Confusion, then shock, then something that looked like devastation. She ended the call and stood there for a moment, swaying slightly. "What happened?" "Marcus went to the press. There's a story breaking right now about our marriage, about how we barely know each other, how I hired you, how the whole thing is a sham." Victoria's voice was hollow. "He leaked the contract. Someone at the hotel or the lawyer's office, I don't know, but it's out there. Everything." Ethan's stomach dropped. "How bad?" "Bad. The board is calling for an emergency meeting. They want an explanation. They want to know if any of this is real or if I've been lying to them from the beginning." "Have you?" Victoria looked at him. "I don't know anymore. It started as a lie, but it doesn't feel like one now." Before Ethan could respond, a nurse appeared. "Mr. and Mrs. Cole, Emma's awake. You can see her now." They followed the nurse through sterile hallways to a recovery room. Emma was there, small and pale in the hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped steadily. But her eyes were open, and when she saw them, she smiled. "Daddy, Victoria, you stayed." "Of course we stayed," Ethan said, taking her hand. "I promised, didn't I?" "It doesn't hurt. The doctor said it would hurt, but it doesn't. That's the medicine. It'll hurt later, but we'll manage it." Victoria brushed hair from Emma's forehead. "How do you feel?" "Sleepy, weird, but okay, I think." Emma's eyes were already drooping again. "Are you guys fighting? You look sad." "We're not fighting," Ethan lied. "We're just tired." "Okay, that's good. I don't like when people fight." Emma yawned. "Can I have ice cream tomorrow?" You can have all the ice cream you want. Strawberry with sprinkles? Strawberry with sprinkles. Emma drifted back to sleep, and Ethan and Victoria stood on either side of her bed, watching her breathe. The monitors showed her heartbeat, strong and steady. The surgery had worked. She was going to be okay. But outside this room, everything was falling apart. Victoria's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Message after message, call after call. The story was spreading fast. Ethan could imagine the headlines: billionaire CEO's fake marriage exposed. Victoria Hale's elaborate deception. Contract husband revealed. I need to go, Victoria said finally. The board meeting is in 2 hours. If I don't show up, they'll vote Marcus in tonight. Emma just woke up. I know, but she's stable. She'll sleep for hours. And you're here. Victoria looked at him, and Ethan saw the same torn expression from earlier. I'm sorry. I don't want to leave, but if I don't fight this now, I lose everything my father built. What about Emma? What about us? I don't know. Victoria's voice was breaking. I don't know how to choose between the company and you. I've spent my entire life working toward this moment, this position, but I've never cared about anyone the way I care about you and Emma, and I don't know what to do. Ethan wanted to tell her to stay, wanted to say the company didn't matter, that they could figure something else out, but he could see the panic in her eyes, the terror of losing the legacy she'd been protecting. Go, he said. Fight for your company. But Victoria, after this is done, we need to talk. Really talk about all of it. What if there's nothing left to talk about? What if the board votes me out and I've lost everything? Then we'll figure it out together, but you have to fight first. Victoria kissed Emma's forehead one more time, then left without looking back. Ethan watched her go and tried to ignore the feeling that something fundamental had just broken between them. He settled into the chair beside Emma's bed, holding her small hand, and waited. The nurses came and went. Doctors checked vitals. Emma slept through most of it, occasionally stirring to ask for water or to make sure Ethan was still there. Around 3 p.m., his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Cole? This is Jennifer Park from the Tribune. I was hoping to get a comment on the story about your marriage to Victoria Hale. Ethan's jaw tightened. No comment. Is it true the marriage was contractual? That Ms. Hale paid you to be her husband? I said no comment. What about your daughter? Sources say her medical bills were covered as part of the arrangement. How does it feel knowing your child's health was bought and paid for? Ethan hung up. His hands were shaking. The phone rang again immediately. Different number, same kind of call. He turned it off and sat in the quiet of the hospital room, listening to Emma breathe and wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Hours passed. Emma woke up properly around 5. Groggy, but alert enough to ask for ice chips. Ethan fed them to her, one at a time, while she told him about the weird dreams she'd had under anesthesia. She didn't mention Victoria's absence, but Ethan could tell she noticed. Around 7, Victoria finally called. Ethan stepped into the hallway to answer. How did it go? Not well. The board gave me a week to prove the marriage is real. If I can't, they're voting Marcus in, and I'm out. Victoria sounded exhausted. Marcus played it perfectly. He positioned himself as the concerned colleague who'd uncovered fraud. The board ate it up. What do they want as proof? I don't know. Something that can't be faked. Something that shows we're a real couple, not a business arrangement. She laughed bitterly. How do you prove love when you don't even know if it exists? Ethan didn't have an answer to that. Are you coming back to the hospital? I'm in the car now. How's Emma? Awake, asking for you. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She arrived in 15, still in her business suit, but disheveled now, her hair falling from its pins. She went straight to Emma's bedside, and Emma's whole face lit up. You came back! Of course I came back, I promised, didn't I? Victoria sat on the edge of the bed carefully, avoiding tubes and wires. How are you feeling? It hurts now, but the nurse gave me medicine and said it'll get better. Emma reached for Victoria's hand. Did your work thing go okay? It was complicated, but it's handled for now. Good. Daddy was sad while you were gone. I think he missed you. Victoria glanced at Ethan, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Or the acknowledgement that whatever this had started as, it had become something neither of them had planned for. They stayed at the hospital through the night. Emma slept fitfully, waking every few hours in discomfort or confusion. Ethan and Victoria took turns sitting with her, comforting her, reminding her she was safe. Around 3 a.m., Emma had a nightmare and woke up crying. Both of them moved to her bed at the same time, sandwiching her between them, and she calmed down almost immediately. "You're both here," she mumbled sleepily. "We're both here," Victoria confirmed. "Like a real family." The words hung in the air. Ethan and Victoria looked at each other over Emma's head, and Ethan saw his own confusion reflected in Victoria's eyes. They'd started this as a transaction, but somewhere along the way they'd become something else, something that looked a lot like a family, even if neither of them knew what to do with that. Morning brought Dr. Chen and good news. Emma's vitals were excellent. She could go home tomorrow if she continued improving. They'd need to take it easy for a few weeks. No running or roughhousing, but the prognosis was excellent. "She's going to be fine," Dr. Chen said. "Better than fine. In 6 months, you won't even remember she had a heart condition." After the doctor left, Ethan and Victoria stepped into the hallway. They were both exhausted, running on fumes and hospital coffee, but there were things that needed to be said. "The board wants proof," Victoria said, "and I don't know how to give them that. How do you prove something you're not even sure of yourself?" "Do you want to be sure?" The question stopped her. "What? Do you want this to be real? Not for the board, not for the company, for you, for us." Ethan moved closer. "Because I think somewhere in the last month, it became real for me. I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you painted Emma's room purple. Maybe when you showed up for her surgery, even though you had a board meeting. Maybe when you told me about the boy who saved you 20 years ago. I'm that boy, even if I don't remember it. And you're the girl who never forgot. And we're standing here in a hospital hallway, both of us terrified and exhausted, and I just realized something." He took her hands. "I don't want this to be fake anymore." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm not saying this isn't complicated or messy or potentially the worst idea either of us has ever had. But I care about you. I think I'm falling for you. And if there's even a chance this could be real, I want to try. What if I fail? What if I lose the company and I've got nothing left to offer you? You think I'm here for the company? For the penthouse and the money?" Ethan laughed. "Victoria, I didn't even know who you were a month ago. The company, the board, Marcus. None of that matters to me. You matter. Emma thinks you matter. So if you lose the vote, we'll figure it out together." "I don't know how to do this. How to let someone in. How to be vulnerable." Victoria was crying openly now. "I've spent so long building walls. I don't know how to take them down." "Then we'll take them down together, one brick at a time." Ethan pulled her close, and she collapsed against him. "But you have to decide, Victoria. Do you want this to be real, or do you want to keep pretending?" She pulled back just enough to look at him. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was a mess, and she'd never looked more beautiful. "I want it to be real. I want you. I want Emma. I want us to be an actual family, not a performance for board members and photographers." "Then that's what we'll be." Victoria kissed him, and this time there was no audience, no cameras, no performance. Just two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way, choosing to take a leap together. When they broke apart, Victoria was smiling through her tears. "We still have to convince the board. We'll figure it out. Marcus is going to come after us harder now." "Let him." "You don't understand. He's ruthless. He'll dig into your past, Emma's medical history, anything he can use to discredit us." "Then we'll be ready for him." Ethan wiped tears from her cheeks. "But first, let's focus on getting Emma home. Everything else can wait." They went back into the room together. Emma was awake, watching cartoons on the hospital TV. She looked at them and grinned. "You guys look happy. Does that mean you're done being weird?" "We were never weird," Ethan protested. "You totally were, but it's okay. I like you better when you're happy." Victoria sat on the bed beside her. "Emma, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How would you feel if this wasn't temporary? If your dad and I actually tried to make this work, for real?" Emma's eyes went wide. "Like, you'd stay married? Forever?" "Maybe. If that's something you'd be okay with." Emma looked between them, her expression serious. Then she threw her arms around Victoria's neck. I'd like that. I'd like that a lot. Victoria held her tight, and Ethan saw tears on her face again. Happy tears this time. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're making a mistake. She's using you. Ask her about the trust fund. Ethan deleted it without responding. Marcus was getting desperate, which meant they were doing something right. But the message nagged at him. What trust fund? He looked at Victoria, who was still hugging Emma, and decided it could wait. They'd face whatever came next together. That's what families did. Even families built on contracts and childhood memories and second chances, neither of them had seen coming. Emma came home 2 days later with a chest full of stitches and a smile that hadn't dimmed despite the pain medication making her loopy. She insisted on walking from the car to the elevator herself, though both Ethan and Victoria hovered close enough to catch her if she stumbled. Patricia had decorated the penthouse with welcome home signs that Emma had made weeks ago, and there were flowers everywhere, mostly from Victoria's business associates who'd somehow heard about the surgery. This is like a party, Emma said, touching the petals of a massive bouquet of roses. It's a glad you didn't die party, Ethan said, then caught Victoria's sharp look. Too soon? Way too soon. But Victoria was smiling. They settled Emma on the couch with pillows and blankets and her tablet loaded with movies. She was asleep within 20 minutes, exhausted from the short trip home. Ethan stood watching her breathe, still not quite believing she was okay. Victoria's phone buzzed for the 100th time that day. She glanced at it, and her expression darkened. Marcus? Grace, the board meeting is tomorrow at 2. They want both of us there. Victoria pocketed her phone. Marcus has been feeding them information all week about how we barely know each other, how the marriage happened too fast, how convenient the timing was. What does he want them to think? That I'm unstable, that I'll do anything to keep control of the company, including fabricating a marriage, that I can't be trusted with a multi-billion-dollar merger if I'm willing to lie about something this fundamental. Victoria moved to the window, her arms crossed. And the worst part is, he's not entirely wrong. I did fabricate this. I did lie. The fact that it became real doesn't erase how it started. Ethan joined her at the window. So we tell them the truth. Which truth? That I married you because you once saved me from bullies 20 years ago? That I've been half in love with a memory since I was 8 years old? That I orchestrated this entire arrangement because I'm terrible at actually connecting with people? Victoria's laugh was bitter. That'll really convince them I'm stable. Or we tell them that two broken people found each other and decided to build something real out of something fake. That we're not perfect, but we're trying. Ethan turned her to face him. The board isn't stupid, Victoria. They know Marcus is playing games. They're just waiting to see which version of you shows up tomorrow. The ice queen who treats everything like a transaction, or the woman who painted a kid's room purple and sat in a hospital all night because she promised she would. What if they choose Marcus anyway? Then we walk away with our heads up. You'll still have me. You'll still have Emma. We'll figure out the rest. Victoria looked at him like he was speaking another language. You keep saying that, like it's easy. Like losing everything I've worked for my entire life is something I can just walk away from. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's survivable. And you won't be alone. Ethan pulled her close. I lost everything once. My wife, my stability, almost my daughter. I know what it feels like to have the floor drop out from under you. And I'm telling you, you survive it, especially when you have people who care about you. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, her head against his chest. Then, there's something else you should know. Before tomorrow. The way she said it made Ethan's stomach tighten. What? The trust fund Marcus mentioned in that text. It's real. Victoria pulled back. When I set up the marriage contract, I also established a trust fund for Emma. $5 million, accessible when she turns 18. I did it the day we signed the papers. Ethan stared at her. $5 million. For her education, her future, whatever she needs. The contract specified your compensation, but I wanted to make sure Emma was taken care of too, regardless of what happened between us. You never told me. I know, I should have, but I was afraid you'd think I was trying to buy you, buy your loyalty or your affection or whatever. Victoria's voice was small. I just wanted her to be okay, even if everything else fell apart. Ethan didn't know what to feel. Grateful, angry, confused, all of it swirled together. That's a lot of money, Victoria. It's nothing compared to what she deserves. She's a good kid who got dealt a bad hand. I can't fix her heart condition, but I can make sure she never has to worry about money the way you did. Victoria met his eyes. Are you angry? I don't know. Maybe I should be, but mostly I'm just... Ethan ran his hands through his hair. You keep surprising me. Every time I think I've got you figured out, you do something that completely rewrites everything I thought I knew. Is that good or bad? I haven't decided yet. But Ethan pulled her back into his arms. We'll add it to the list of things to figure out. That night, after Emma was asleep and the penthouse was quiet, Ethan found himself unable to settle. His mind kept circling back to the board meeting, to Marcus's schemes, to the very real possibility that by this time tomorrow, everything would be different. He was staring at his phone, rereading Marcus's texts, when something clicked. The messages had been too specific, too detailed. Marcus knew things about their arrangement that only a handful of people should have known. The exact terms of the contract, the timeline, even details about Emma's medical bills, which meant someone close to Victoria had been feeding him information. Ethan found Victoria in her office, working despite the late hour. She looked up when he entered. Can't sleep either? Victoria, who knew about the contract? The actual details, not just that we got married. She thought for a moment. My lawyer drew it up. Grace has access to all my files. The hotel staff where we signed it. Why? Because Marcus knows too much. He's not guessing. He has actual information, which means someone's been talking to him. Victoria's expression went cold. You think someone on my team is working for Marcus? I think it's the only explanation that makes sense. She was already pulling up files on her computer, scanning through emails and access logs. Grace has been with me for 3 years. My lawyer even longer. I trust them. Maybe you shouldn't. Victoria's fingers flew across the keyboard. Then she stopped, her face going pale. Oh no. What? Grace's brother works for Marcus. I knew that, but I didn't think... She swore it wouldn't be a conflict of interest. She signed an NDA. Victoria scrolled through what looked like email metadata. But she's been accessing the contract files multiple times over the past 2 weeks, including the day before the story broke. She sold you out. She sold me out. Victoria's voice was hollow. For what? Money? A promotion? Marcus probably promised her a job when he took over. Ethan moved behind her desk. Can you prove it? The access logs prove she looked at the files, but not that she sent them to Marcus. That would require... Victoria trailed off, then started typing again. Grace uses the company email server, which means IT has backups of everything. She made a call despite the late hour. Someone in IT answered, clearly used to Victoria's odd hours requests. She explained what she needed, and there was typing on the other end. Then a long pause. You're sure? Victoria's voice was tight. Okay, send me everything. Yes, now. I don't care what time it is. She hung up and looked at Ethan. Grace has been forwarding confidential files to Marcus's personal email for 3 weeks, including the contract, my financial records, and strategy documents for the Northwest Tech acquisition. That's corporate espionage. That's leverage. Victoria's expression was hard now, all business. Marcus has been using Grace to sabotage me from the inside, but now we have proof, which means tomorrow's board meeting just got very interesting. They stayed up until 3 a.m. building their case. Victoria compiled evidence while Ethan helped organize it into something coherent. By the time they finished, they had a presentation that laid out exactly what Marcus had done: the leaked information, the media manipulation, the calculated campaign to undermine Victoria's credibility. This could work, Victoria said, reviewing the final slides. If the board sees what Marcus has been doing, they'll have to question his methods, maybe even his fitness to lead. Or they'll think you're desperate and making accusations you can't prove. The evidence proves itself. Grace's emails are right there in black and white. Evidence can be spun. Marcus is good at this, Victoria. He's been playing this game longer than you have. Ethan closed the laptop. We show them the evidence, but we also show them you. The real you, not the Ice Queen version you think they want to see. The board doesn't care about the real me. They care about quarterly earnings and shareholder value. Then make them care. Tell them about your father's vision, about why this company matters, about what you're actually fighting for. Ethan took her hands. You've been so focused on being what you think they want that you forgot to be yourself. And yourself is pretty damn impressive." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "What if it's not enough? Then at least you'll know you tried, that you showed up as yourself and gave it everything you had." Ethan pulled her to her feet. "But I think you're going to surprise yourself tomorrow. I think you're stronger than you know." They went to bed but barely slept. Ethan kept waking up to find Victoria gone, pacing in the living room or checking on Emma or staring out the windows at the city. Each time, he got up and brought her back to bed, holding her until her breathing evened out. Morning came too fast. Emma woke up complaining that her chest hurt, and they had to adjust her pain medication. Patricia arrived early to stay with her during the board meeting. Emma hugged both of them before they left. "Good luck," she said to Victoria. "You're going to be great." "How do you know?" "Because you're the smartest person I know, and because Daddy believes in you, and he's never wrong about people." Victoria kissed her forehead. "I'll try to live up to that." The drive to Hale Industries headquarters was tense. Victoria was in full armor, dark suit, hair pulled back severely, makeup perfect. But Ethan could see her hands shaking as she reviewed her notes. "Hey," he said, "look at me." She did. "Whatever happens in there, we're okay. You and me and Emma. That doesn't change based on what the board decides." "I know, but I really don't want to lose." "Then don't. Go in there and fight for what's yours." The boardroom was exactly what Ethan expected. Long table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 12 board members were already seated, along with Marcus at the far end looking smug and confident. Grace was conspicuously absent. The board chair, a woman named Margaret Chen, who'd known Victoria's father, called the meeting to order. "We're here to address concerns about Victoria Hale's fitness to serve as permanent CEO of Hale Industries. Marcus, you called this meeting. Please present your case." Marcus stood and Ethan had to admire his performance. He was smooth, professional, concerned rather than accusatory. He laid out his evidence: the marriage contract, the timeline, the questions about Ethan's background. He painted a picture of a young executive so desperate to prove herself that she'd fabricated a marriage to appear stable. "I'm not questioning Victoria's intelligence or business acumen," Marcus said. "I'm questioning her judgment. The Northwest Tech acquisition is the largest in our company's history. We need leadership that's stable, proven, and above all honest. Can we trust someone who's willing to lie about something as fundamental as marriage?" Several board members nodded. Ethan felt Victoria tense beside him. Margaret looked at Victoria. "Do you have a response?" Victoria stood. Ethan had seen her do this before, watched her slip into her CEO persona, all ice and calculation. But this time was different. This time she let the mask crack. "Marcus is right about one thing. The marriage started as a business arrangement. I needed a husband to satisfy the board's outdated requirements, and Ethan needed money for his daughter's medical care. We signed a contract. It was transactional." She paused. "But Marcus is wrong about everything else." She pulled up her presentation on the screen. "What Marcus hasn't told you is how he obtained his information. My assistant Grace, whose brother works for Marcus, has been stealing confidential files and forwarding them to him for weeks, including strategic documents about the Northwest acquisition. Here are the emails." The boardroom erupted. Marcus's face went red. Margaret called for order. Victoria kept going. "Marcus has been conducting a systematic campaign to undermine my credibility. He leaked the contract to the press. He planted stories questioning my stability. He even contacted my husband directly with threatening messages. All of this is documented." She switched slides, showing Marcus's text to Ethan, the email trails, the timeline of leaked information. "This isn't about my fitness to lead. This is about Marcus trying to stage a coup. He wants this company, and he's willing to destroy my reputation to get it." "These allegations are ridiculous," Marcus sputtered. "Victoria is desperate, making wild accusations." "The emails are from the company server," Victoria cut him off. "IT can verify every single one. Grace has already been terminated and is cooperating with our legal team. So unless you're calling our entire IT department liars, the evidence speaks for itself." Margaret was reading through the documents on her tablet, her expression growing darker. Other board members were doing the same. Ethan watched Marcus realize his play had failed, watched him scramble for a new angle. "Even if that's true," Marcus said,
It doesn't change the fact that Victoria lied to this board, that she fabricated a marriage. I didn't fabricate anything, Victoria interrupted. Yes, the marriage started as an arrangement, but it became real. Ethan and I. She stopped, looking at Ethan. We fell in love. Not in the romantic comedy way where everything is perfect and easy. In the messy, complicated, real way that happens when two people actually show up for each other. She turned back to the board. My father built this company on the principle that people matter more than profit. That innovation requires taking risks. That the right thing isn't always the easy thing. I've tried so hard to live up to his legacy that I forgot the most important part. Being human. Being honest. Being willing to admit when you're scared or uncertain or in over your head. Yes, spit. Victoria's voice was stronger now. I'm all of those things. I'm scared of failing him. I'm uncertain if I'm good enough. I'm in over my head trying to balance running this company with being a wife and stepmother. But I'm not lying anymore. Not to you, not to myself, not to anyone. She pulled up another slide. Financial projections, acquisition strategies, growth models. The Northwest Tech merger will position Hale Industries as the dominant tech conglomerate on the West Coast. I've spent 2 years preparing for this. I know every aspect of their business, every potential pitfall, every opportunity for growth. I can do this job. I can lead this company into its next phase, but only if you're willing to trust someone who's honest about her imperfections instead of someone who'll say whatever you want to hear. Victoria sat down. The boardroom was silent. Margaret looked at Marcus. Do you have anything to add? Marcus's jaw worked. This is a witch hunt. You're taking the word of a woman who's already admitted to lying. We're taking the evidence in front of us, Margaret interrupted, which includes documentation of corporate espionage and a pattern of manipulation on your part. I think we need to discuss this in executive session. Victoria, Ethan, Marcus, please step outside. They filed out into the hallway. Marcus stormed off without a word. Ethan and Victoria sat on a bench, not touching, both staring at the closed boardroom door. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the biggest mistake of your career, Ethan said finally. Probably both. Victoria leaned her head back against the wall. I meant what I said in there, about us being real. I know. Even if they vote for Marcus, even if I lose everything, you won't lose everything. You'll still have me. Ethan took her hand. And Emma, who thinks you hung the moon. And Patricia, who baked you those cookies last week even though you pretended you didn't eat them all in one sitting. Victoria smiled despite herself. I shared them with Emma. You ate most of them. Fine. I ate most of them. They were really good cookies. They sat there making small talk, both avoiding the subject of what was happening behind the closed door. 20 minutes passed. Then 40. Then an hour. Finally, the door opened. Margaret gestured them back inside. The board members' expressions were unreadable. Ethan's heart was pounding as he and Victoria took their seats. Marcus was nowhere to be seen. Margaret folded her hands on the table. We've made our decision. Marcus Webb has been removed from his position and is no longer with the company, effective immediately. His actions constitute gross misconduct and a violation of his fiduciary duties. Victoria's face was carefully neutral, but Ethan saw her hands clench. As for the CEO position, Margaret continued, we voted unanimously to approve Victoria Hale as permanent CEO of Hale Industries. The relief on Victoria's face was instant and overwhelming. Ethan grabbed her hand under the table and squeezed. However, Margaret added, we're adding conditions. You'll report to the board monthly for the first year. We're also assigning you an executive coach to help with work-life balance. Your father built this company, but he also sacrificed his health and personal relationships to do it. We don't want to see you make the same mistakes. I understand, Victoria said, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill over. Thank you, all of you. I won't let you down. We know you won't. Meeting adjourned. The board members filed out, several stopping to congratulate Victoria. Margaret was the last to leave. She paused at the door. Your father would be proud of you. Not because you won, but because you were finally honest. That took more courage than any business deal ever could. When they were alone, Victoria turned to Ethan and burst into tears. He pulled her close and she sobbed into his shoulder, relief and exhaustion and the release of months of pressure all hitting at once. You did it, Ethan said. You actually did it. We did it. Victoria pulled back, her makeup ruined, but her smile genuine. I couldn't have done this without you. Any of it. Sure you could have. You're Victoria Hale. You can do anything. Not alone. I tried that for too long. It doesn't work. She kissed him, deep and real and full of promise. Let's go home. I want to tell Emma. They drove back to the penthouse in Victoria's car, both of them giddy with relief. Victoria called Grace's replacement and started delegating tasks for the Northwest acquisition. Ethan listened to her talk strategy and numbers and felt something settle in his chest. This was who she was, brilliant, driven, passionate about her work. And she didn't have to hide that anymore. Emma was watching cartoons when they got back, Patricia sitting nearby with her knitting. Emma looked up when they entered, and her face lit up. You won! I can tell you won because you're both smiling. Victoria scooped her up carefully, mindful of her healing chest. We won! I'm officially the CEO. That's great. Does that mean we can celebrate with ice cream? It definitely means that. They sent Patricia home early and spent the evening together. The three of them on the couch, eating ice cream and watching Emma's favorite movies. Emma fell asleep between them around 8, and Ethan carried her to her room. He tucked her in and stood watching her breathe for a moment, marveling at how much had changed in just a few weeks. When he came back out, Victoria was on the balcony, looking out at the city. He joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. What are you thinking about? Everything. Nothing. How different my life is now compared to a month ago. Victoria leaned back against him. A month ago, I was alone in this apartment, working 18-hour days, convinced I had to do everything myself. Now I have you. I have Emma. I have something that feels like a family. It is a family, weird and unconventional, but real. What happens now? We have the year specified in the contract. Do we pretend that still matters? Do we ignore it? Ethan turned her to face him. I have a better idea. Let's tear up the contract. Victoria blinked. What? The contract was for a fake marriage, but this isn't fake anymore. So let's get rid of it. Start over. Do this right. Ethan took her hands. I want to date you, Victoria Hale. I want to take you to dinner and learn what your favorite food is. I want to know what you were like as a kid, what you wanted to be before you decided to run a company. I want to figure out who we are together without a contract telling us how to act. What about the money, the terms? Keep it. Give it to charity. I don't care. I'm not here for money anymore. I'm here because I want to be. Victoria's eyes were bright with tears again. You're serious? Completely. So what do you say? Want to go on a date with me? I'm already married to you. Technically, but we skipped all the good parts. Let me do this right. Victoria laughed through her tears. Okay, yes, I'd like that, but I get to plan the second date. Deal. They kissed on the balcony, the city spread out below them, and Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The bone-deep certainty that everything was going to be okay. The next few weeks were a strange adjustment. Victoria threw herself into the Northwest acquisition with renewed focus, but she also started coming home for dinner every night. She and Ethan went on their first official date, a small Italian restaurant where Victoria admitted she'd never actually learned to cook, and Ethan promised to teach her. Their second date was a charity gala where Victoria introduced Ethan as her husband but also her partner, and the distinction felt important. Emma recovered quickly from surgery. Within 3 weeks, she was running around the penthouse with more energy than Ethan had ever seen. Dr. Chen declared her healing ahead of schedule and cleared her for normal activities. The first time Emma ran a full lap around the park without getting winded, she cried happy tears, and so did Ethan. The contract stayed in a drawer in Victoria's office, unsigned and forgotten. They'd started something new, something built on choice rather than obligation. One Saturday morning, Ethan woke to find Victoria's side of the bed empty. He found her in Emma's room, sitting on the window seat watching Emma sleep. There were tears on her face. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything's right, actually. That's the problem. Victoria wiped her eyes. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for this to fall apart. I'm not used to things working out. Ethan sat beside her. What if they just do? What if we're allowed to be happy without waiting for the other shoe to drop? I don't know how to do that. Me neither, but we can figure it out together. He pulled her close. You know what I think? I think you've been protecting yourself for so long that you forgot what it feels like to let someone in.
to trust that they'll stay. What if you don't? Stay, I mean. What if you wake up one day and realize this was a mistake? Then we'll deal with it. But Victoria, I'm not going anywhere. Not because a contract says I have to be here, because I want to be here, because you're infuriating and brilliant and you cry at nature documentaries when you think no one's watching, because Emma loves you and I'm falling harder for you every day. Victoria kissed him, soft and slow. I love you. I should have said it before, but I was scared. I'm still scared, but I love you anyway. I love you too. Even though you're terrible at delegating and you work too much and you still haven't learned how to work the coffee maker. I know how to work the coffee maker. I just like when you make it. Liar. They laughed together, quiet in the early morning light, and Emma stirred in her bed. Are you guys being mushy again? She asked without opening her eyes. Definitely not, Ethan said. You're bad liars. Emma sat up, rubbing her eyes. Can we have pancakes? Sure, kiddo. The fancy ones with the blueberries? Yeah, and Victoria has to help make them. I don't know how to make pancakes. Then Daddy will teach you. That's what families do, teach each other stuff. Victoria met Ethan's eyes over Emma's head, and he saw his own wonder reflected back. This was their family, broken pieces that had somehow fit together into something whole. 6 months later, the Northwest Tech acquisition was finalized. Hale Industries became the largest tech conglomerate on the West Coast, and Victoria was featured on the cover of 3 major business magazines. The articles called her a visionary, a powerhouse, a CEO to watch. But Ethan's favorite photo was the one they didn't publish. Victoria at home in sweatpants, helping Emma with a science project, her hair pulled back and her face makeup-free. The board never asked about the marriage again. Whatever doubts they'd had were erased by Victoria's performance and her obvious commitment to building something lasting. Marcus Webb disappeared from the industry entirely. Last Ethan heard, he'd moved to Europe and was consulting for a tech startup. Grace sent Victoria a letter apologizing for the betrayal, but Victoria never responded. Some bridges, once burned, stayed that way. On their 1-year anniversary, the date of their City Hall wedding, not the contract signing, Ethan took Victoria back to that little Italian restaurant. Over pasta and wine, he pulled out a small box. What's this? Victoria asked. Open it. Inside was a simple gold band, nothing like the expensive engagement ring she'd bought herself for appearances. This one was understated, classic, with a small inscription inside. For real this time. Ethan, I know we're already married, but that was for contracts and board members and business deals. This is for us. He took her hand. Victoria Hale, will you marry me again? For real this time? No contracts, no conditions, just us choosing each other every day? Victoria was crying, which she'd been doing a lot more of lately. Happy tears, usually. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They had a second wedding 3 months later. Small ceremony, just Emma and Patricia and a few close friends. No board members, no photographers, no performance, just 2 people who'd found each other in the strangest way possible, promising to keep choosing each other. Emma was the flower girl and took her job very seriously. She scattered petals with intense concentration and cried during the vows, which made everyone else cry too. At the reception, which was really just dinner at the penthouse with people they loved, Emma pulled Ethan aside. I have a question. Shoot. Since you and Victoria are married for real now, does that mean she's definitely my mom? Like, forever? Ethan's throat tightened. Do you want her to be? Yeah, I know I had a mom before, and I still love her. But Victoria's my mom now too. Is that okay? That's more than okay, Em. That's perfect. Emma nodded seriously. Then she went to Victoria and asked if they could talk. Ethan watched from across the room as Emma said something that made Victoria's face crumple. She hugged Emma tight, and when they broke apart, Emma was wearing a necklace Victoria had been wearing earlier, a simple gold pendant that had belonged to Victoria's mother. Later, when the guests had left and Emma was asleep, Ethan found Victoria on the balcony again. It had become their spot, the place where they had their most honest conversations. Emma asked if she could call me Mom, Victoria said. I told her she didn't have to, that Victoria was fine, but she insisted, said she'd been thinking about it for a while. How do you feel about that? Terrified, honored, like I've been given this incredible gift I'm not sure I deserve. Victoria leaned against the railing.
I never thought I'd be a mother. Never thought I'd be good at it. But Emma makes it easy. You're better at it than you think. You're patient with her homework. You remember which vegetables she hates. You let her stay up late on weekends watching those terrible dance competition shows. Those shows are not terrible. They're very entertaining. You're watching them without her now. I've seen you. Victoria laughed. Okay, fine, they're addictive, but don't tell Emma. She'll never let me live it down. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Ethan thought about where they'd been a year ago. Two strangers signing a contract in a hotel room, both desperate for different reasons. He thought about all the moments that had brought them here. Emma's surgery, the board meeting, the small daily choices to be honest and vulnerable and present. Do you ever regret it? Victoria asked. Taking that deal, marrying me for money? Every day. She pulled back, hurt flashing across her face. Because I wish I'd met you differently, Ethan continued. I wish our story started with something normal. A coffee shop meet cute or a mutual friend introduction. I wish we hadn't needed contracts and board meetings and corporate espionage to figure out we belong together. He pulled her close again. But I don't regret where we ended up, not for a second. We did take the scenic route. The very scenic route. But we got here eventually. Victoria kissed him, and Ethan tasted salt from her tears. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me, the real me, under all the armor and Ice Queen routine, for not running when things got complicated. Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me with Emma, for being brave enough to admit you were scared. We're good at this now, the honesty thing. We're getting better at it, still working on the coffee maker situation, though. I'm never learning that coffee maker. It has too many buttons. It has 3 buttons. That's too many. They laughed together, and somewhere in the penthouse, Emma called out for water. Ethan went to get it, and when he came back, Victoria was still on the balcony, but she was smiling. What? He asked. I was just thinking about that boy, the one who saved me when I was 8, how he stayed between me and those bullies even though he was outnumbered, how he gave me his jacket and walked me home. Victoria turned to face him. I spent 20 years looking for that kindness again, and then I found it, found you. Even if you don't remember being him. I wish I did remember. I wish I could tell you what I was thinking that day. I know what you were thinking, same thing you're always thinking. How to help, how to fix things, how to protect the people who need it. Victoria took his hand. You haven't changed. You're still that boy, just taller, and with more responsibilities, and a daughter who has you wrapped around her finger. Emma does not have me wrapped around her finger. She asked for a puppy yesterday, and you said you'd think about it. Thinking about it is not the same as saying yes. We're getting a puppy, aren't we? Probably, but a small one, and Emma has to take care of it. Victoria kissed his cheek. We're getting a big one, and we both know you'll end up doing all the work. She was right, of course. 3 weeks later, they adopted a golden retriever puppy that Emma named Princess Butterscotch. And Ethan was the one who got up for midnight potty breaks and cleaned up accidents and taught the dog to sit. But watching Emma play with Princess Butterscotch in the park, running without getting winded, laughing with the pure joy of a healthy kid, Ethan couldn't bring himself to complain. This was his life now. A wife he loved, a daughter who was thriving, a dog who ate his shoes but was too cute to stay mad at. It wasn't the life he'd planned. It was better. Sometimes, late at night when Victoria was working and Emma was asleep and the penthouse was quiet, Ethan would pull out his phone and look at the photo from their second wedding. Victoria in a simple white dress, Emma between them in purple, all 3 of them laughing at something Patricia had said. They looked like a family. They were a family. The contract was still in Victoria's desk drawer. They'd never officially terminated it, but they'd never followed its terms either. It existed in a strange limbo, a reminder of where they'd started and how far they'd come. 1 year turned into 2. Emma started 3rd grade and joined the soccer team, her repaired heart keeping up with everything her body demanded. Victoria's company continued to grow, but she also learned to delegate, to trust her team, to come home at reasonable hours most nights. Ethan went back to school, finally finishing his degree, and started working part-time at a nonprofit that helped single parents navigate the healthcare system. They had fights, because real families fight. Victoria worked too much, and Ethan was overprotective of Emma, and they both had trauma they were still unpacking. But they showed up for each other. They went to therapy, couples and individual,
They learned to communicate, to be honest even when it was uncomfortable, to choose each other even when it was hard.
And through it all, Emma watched and learned. She learned that families could be built, not just born into. That love was a choice you made every day. That people could be broken and still be whole together. On Emma's 9th birthday, she asked for a family meeting. She'd been serious about it all week, and both Ethan and Victoria were slightly worried about what she might say.
They gathered in the living room after the birthday party, Princess Butterscotch snoring on the couch. Emma stood in front of them, looking far too grown up for 9. "I want to talk about something important," she announced. "Okay," Ethan said carefully. "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking about my last name." Emma twisted her hands together. "I'm Emma Cole, but Victoria's last name is Hale. And I was wondering, could I be Emma Hale Cole? With both names? Because you're both my parents, and I want to have both your names." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Again. She'd become such a crier over the past 2 years, and Ethan loved her for it. "If that's what you want," Victoria said softly, "we can make it happen." "Really?"
"Really? I'd be honored to share my name with you." Emma threw her arms around Victoria, then dragged Ethan into the hug too. They stayed like that for a long time, the three of them holding each other, Princess Butterscotch eventually joining the pile because she hated being left out.
Later, after Emma was asleep, Ethan found the old contract in Victoria's desk. He read through it one more time, all the clauses about public appearances and financial compensation and the 1-year term. It felt like reading about strangers. He took it to the kitchen, where Victoria was making tea. She'd finally learned to use the electric kettle, though the coffee maker remained beyond her capabilities. "What are you doing with that?" she asked. "I think it's time we got rid of it, officially." Victoria took the contract and read through it, her expression unreadable. Then she walked to the fireplace they never used and turned on the gas. Together? Together. They fed the pages into the flames one by one, watching their fake marriage burn away. When the last page was gone, Victoria turned off the fire and they stood there in the quiet. "No more contract," she said. No more contract, just us." "Just us," Victoria agreed. "And Emma, and Princess Butterscotch, and Patricia, who's basically family at this point, and your brother, who finally started talking to you again. And, okay, so not just us, a whole complicated family situation. The best kind." Ethan pulled her close, and they swayed together in the living room, no music playing, just two people who'd learned to dance together after years of stepping on each other's toes. This was what they'd built. Not a fairy tale or a perfect romance, but something real and messy and absolutely worth fighting for. They'd started as strangers making a desperate deal, but they'd become partners, parents, a family. Sometimes the best things in life come from the worst circumstances. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. Sometimes a fake marriage becomes the realest thing you've ever known. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the boy who saved you when you were 8 grows up to save you again. Not from bullies or board members or corporate espionage, but from the loneliness you didn't even know you were living with. And you get to save him right back, which might be the greatest gift of all. Ethan Cole and Victoria Hale had learned that love wasn't about perfect moments or grand gestures. It was about showing up, being honest, choosing each other again and again, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. They'd built something lasting out of something temporary, and in the end, that was the only contract that mattered. The unspoken promise to keep choosing each other every single day for as long as they both lived.